Chapter 2159. Is it time to put on a huge show? But what should he do? What would be the best way for everyone to think well of him without sticking out like a sore thumb? He was currently in drifting Spectre Royal City. It was a place filled with experts. Even though he had grown much stronger after soaking in the lucid lunar lake, he was not so arrogant as to think that he was already invincible. Putting everything aside, it might be hard for him to defeat Chi-Yu in a proper battle. Achieving a breakthrough in one's Jinchi cultivation was wholly different from making a breakthrough with one's physical body. The latter allowed him to become nigh invincible in close-quarter battles, but once the opponent realized his weakness and kept his distance, he would be in grave danger. Not only would he have trouble attacking, he would have difficulty trying to defend himself. The ability of celestial gods to tap into the power of nature should not be underestimated. For this reason, while trying to earn the recognition of others to gather the anima of yearning, he had to make sure not to go overboard. Otherwise, he might draw unwanted attention, and that would only lead to endless trouble in the future. Zhong Xian turned to Zhuo Feng and asked, "What do you recommend I do?" It had not been long since he arrived in the firmament, so he was not familiar with how things worked there. In contrast, there should be many cultivators who had tried all sorts of ways to gather the anima of yearning in the past. It would be much safer to follow their footsteps than to come up with something on his own. Well, the fastest way to generate anima of yearning is to challenge the god monarchs directly. That's how the heaven subjugation monarch came to prominence. Once you succeed, your name will spread far and wide around the firmament, and you'll receive an endless supply of anima of yearning. Zhuo Feng replied. "You are joking, right?" Zhong Xian asked with widened eyes. If he did that, he would probably die in a heartbeat. He might have never met a god monarch before, but he had just gotten a glimpse into the overwhelming power that a conferred god king possessed. It would probably only take a mere finger for Qi Meng to crush him to death, let alone the stronger god monarch. Haha, it's just an afterthought. Zhuo Feng chuckled to himself. He would not usually joke like this, but it seemed like he was a little too overjoyed at his son's breakthrough, so he was not as careful as he usually was. The conventional way to obtain anima of yearning is to reach the top of an occupation, for example, blacksmith. As long as your weapons are powerful and useful, and cultivators view obtaining your weapon as a great honor, the amount of anima of yearning you earn will naturally increase correspondingly. The same goes for apothecaries. If your pills are effective yet inexpensive, it's natural that people will be thankful to you, Zhuo Feng explained. Pills? Zhong Xian's eyes lit up as a thought came to his mind. He was unskilled in smithing, and it was no easy feat to mass-produce weapons. However, when it came to pills, all it took was just a surge of his heaven's path Jinchi. As long as he could gather sufficient low-tier god essence pills, he could produce as many beauty pills as he wanted. Not only would it accentuate one's appearance, smoothing their skin and enhancing their disposition, more importantly, it could heal their internal traumas and clear their meridians, allowing them to overcome their bottleneck. The only issue with that was the price. The beauty pill was currently priced quite exorbitantly, making it a commodity that most people could not afford. If he sold them too cheaply, it would tear down the market that had just barely been built up. It would surely incur much dissatisfaction among those who had spent lots of money to buy them, and this was significant given that a god king of the Qi clan had just made a bulk purchase. What kind of pills are cheap and accessible to all cultivators in drifting Spectre Royal City? Zhong Xian asked Zhuo Feng. There was no need for him to rely on the beauty pill to make his name. He could infuse his heaven's path Jinchi in other stuff. Back when he was still on the master-teacher continent, he used to infuse his heaven's path Jinchi into vats of wine. Zhuo Feng pondered for a moment before replying. Well, the best-selling pill in Royal City is definitely the God Essence tablet. It's basically a simplified version of the God Essence pills, and you can buy around 10 of them with a single divine coin. There are no restrictions on how many of them you can buy. Most cultivators usually bring dozens around with them, as even though the effects are inferior to those of God Essence pills, they can allow people to swiftly recover their strength in times of danger. I guess that'll be it then. Zhong Xian nodded as his mind swiftly churned to formulate a feasible plan. He needed something cheap and inexpensive for him to earn the gratitude of others. Focusing on the higher-end market would only bring him more money. It would be difficult for him to earn the gratitude of others quickly through that. So, his current plan was to continue producing the beauty pills to win over the high-end aesthetic markets, and he would produce a counterpart to the God Essence tablet in order to win over the ordinary cultivators. With that, he would make the cultivators of drifting Spectre Royal City go crazy over him. Of course, he would have to make sure to control the amount of Heaven's Pathshanchi that he infused into each pill carefully. Each beauty pill would have a surge of Heaven's Pathshanchi, and for each God Essence tablet, he would probably just infuse 1/100th of that. This way, it would still be effective, but it would not be as obvious. Otherwise, the market of the beauty pill would collapse. Not only so, it would also cause a huge commotion. If one sold a highly effective pill at a low price, it would disrupt the markets. He might still be able to win people over, but at the same time, he would make enemies out of those in the pill business. Some might even send assassins after him in hopes of learning the formula behind his pill so that they could copy him. "Thank you," Zhong Xian said with a smile. It was lucky that he had consulted Zhuo Feng about this matter, or else it would have taken him some effort to figure this out as an outsider. "It's nothing at all. Zhongshe, if there's anything you need, feel free to tell me. I'll do my best to help you," Zhuo Feng explained. There is something that I'll really need to trouble you for. I need to acquire a huge amount of God Essence tablets. If you are free, General Zhuo Feng, I would really be thankful if you could help me buy as many God Essence tablets as you can, Zhong Xian said. "That's no trouble at all. Our military has connections with the suppliers, so I should be able to get them for you at a low price," Zhuo Feng replied with a chuckle. "That would be great." Zhong Xian nodded. "Help me get as much as you can, and I need them in 7 days' time. Money is not an issue." "All right, leave it to me." Zhuo Feng had no idea what Zhong Xian was up to, but he was glad to be of help to his son's benefactor. He bade farewell and left the residence. Right after Zhuo Feng left, Zhong Xian called Qi Ling'e and son Qiong over. "I need you two to carry out something for me. Young master, feel free to relay your orders." The two of them bowed deeply. "Firstly, I need you to help me acquire at least 10,000 God Essence pills. I'm intending to forge all of them into beauty pills and sell them. I need you to get it done within 7 days. I can handle that. Buying 10,000 God Essence pills isn't feasible in Twilight City, but here in Royal City, I should be able to bring them to you within half a day." Qi Ling'e nodded. "As for selling them, while our clan head has said that he wants all of them, I doubt that the Qi clan has the financial resources to buy 10,000 of them in one shot. That being said, with the influence I have from the Qi clan, I should be able to sell at least half of them within 7 days. Given her new position as the head of the Lucid Lunar market, as well as the implicit backing of the old ancestor, she could tap into most of the resources in the Qi clan for this. Even with the popularity of the beauty pills, selling 10,000 beauty pills was no easy feat due to the high price. Nevertheless, as long as she laid the groundwork properly and built up sufficient momentum, she should be able to do it. Of course, there was a great deal of work that she would have to do beforehand in preparation for that. Other than that, I need you to help me mass purchase jade bottles. They must be cheap but look decent. They must also be able to store medicine properly without allowing any spiritual energy to leak out. Similarly, I need as many of them as possible. Last but not least, I need you to tap into the influence of the Qi clan to gather renowned figures and ordinary cultivators of Royal City together. I'm looking at a crowd of at least 100,000 people. At the same time, I also need a venue large enough to house all of them. I need you to get all of this done within 7 days, Zhong Xian said. If he wished to build a good reputation for himself in the shortest time possible, this was probably the way to go. He had to do it large and do it well. And he would also need a decent-sized crowd in order to get the word out. It would be similar to what Qi Ling'e had done back in Twilight City. The effect would be the greatest if people could see it with their own eyes. I'll start working on it right now, Qi Ling'e said with a nod. It would have been difficult for her to handle something of this scale in the past, but now that she had the full support of the clan head and the old ancestor, it was no exaggeration to say that there were no resources in the Qi clan that she could not tap into. As long as she used what she had at her disposal well, it was not impossible to get everything done within 7 days. After receiving an affirmative response from Qi Ling'er, Zhongxian turned his gaze to Sun Qiong and instructed, "I'll leave the second matter for you to handle. I need you to rent 100 shops within the city. They don't have to be too large, probably around 10 to 20 square meters would do. Renovate them to make them look professional, and change their name to Zhongxian's Pills." Zhongxian's Pills? Sun Qiong's cheeks twitched a little. It was not that he was trying to put down the young master, but was the name not a little too direct? It felt like a celebrity wannabe desperately trying to plaster his name everywhere. "This is the easiest way for me to get everyone to remember me. Most cultivators won't remember the name of the apothecary who forged the pill they are eating. So, the only way for me to force them to make the association is to label all the stores under my name. This way, they will have no choice but to think of me each time they eat my pills," Zhongxian explained with a smug smile. He could do it in a more implicit and refined manner, but the effectiveness would be reduced. Sometimes, the simplest and most coarse method was the most effective. Zhongxian's pills did sound a little awkward, but that was precisely what would help him spread his name all around town. Once everyone associated his name with the pills that he made, the anima of yearning would start rolling in. More importantly, once he started making his name, it would only be a matter of time before Luo Ruoxin or Luo Chichi heard about him. Perhaps they would come and look for him, which would be far easier than him searching around in vain for them. "I'll give you 10 days to source and renovate those shops. Are you confident in getting it done?" Zhongxian asked. "This." Sun Qiong hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth in determination. "I'll definitely get it down somehow." To procure over 100 stores and renovate them within 10 days was definitely no easy feat. He would have to keep tabs on the progress of each of the stores in order to ensure that they would be ready by the 10th day. However, as long as the cost was not an issue, it should still be possible to get it done if he could find a good intermediary to work with. "Good. Time is tight, so you should start getting to work," Zhongxian said. "Yes." Qi Ling'er and Sun Qiong quickly walked out of the room to start on their work. "Once I gain enough fame, I'll have a steady supply of anima of yearning. What I have to do now is leave my soul imprint in the Netherworld Pool. The Netherworld Pool of the Chenkuan Demon Monarch is probably out of access to me, but I can try dropping by Drifting Spectre Royal City's Netherworld Pool," Zhongxian thought as he rose to his feet. Naturally, he also had things to do. What he had to do first was leave his soul imprint in the Netherworld Pool, or else he would not be able to gather anima of yearning even after he had spread his name. He had learned quite a bit about the various places in Drifting Spectre Royal City through the books in the Master Teacher Pavilion, so he knew his way around. Since he had time at the moment, it was best to get it done now lest he forgot about it in the future. So, he left his residence and headed toward the Netherworld Palace. 4 hours later, a magnificent palace appeared in his line of sight. Outsiders aren't allowed to enter the Netherworld Palace. "What business do you have here?" As soon as Zhongxian walked up to the entrance, the 2 guards on duty immediately raised their spears to block his passageway. "I wish to make a trip to the Netherworld Pool," Zhongxian replied. "You wish to visit the Netherworld Pool? Do you have a reservation? Are you meeting someone?" a guard asked with a frown. Chapter 2160 Netherworld Pool. "I'm not visiting anyone. I wish to leave my soul imprint in the Netherworld Pool in order to gather anima of yearning," Zhongxian replied. The guard was a little perplexed to hear those words, and he said, "Not everyone has the power to withstand the anima of yearning, and those who haven't made any contributions to the sky of Drifting Spectre are unlikely to earn any anima of yearning. However, if you really wish to do it, the Netherworld Palace has no reason to stop you. That being said, you'll have to pay a fee of 10,000 divine coins for that." 10,000 divine coins? Zhongxian nodded. "All right." Qi Ling'er had passed everything that the clan head of the Qi clan sent her earlier over to him. To most cultivators, 10,000 divine coins was probably their entire family fortune, but to Zhongxian, it was an easily affordable sum. He took out his card and sent the money over. After confirming that he had received the money, the guard led him into the palace. The Netherworld Pool was located at the depths of the palace. Different from the lucid lunar lake, the energy within it felt warm and soothing. It seemed to be constantly accumulating some sort of elusive energy that nourished whatever was within the pool. Zhongxian could vaguely perceive the existence of elusive energy, but he found that he was unable to phase it at all. In that sense, it was kind of similar to an apparition, where one could only see it and nothing more. This is the Netherworld pool. In order to leave a soul imprint in it, you'll have to place a droplet of fresh blood on the stone tablet over there. The guard pointed. Zhongxian looked over and saw a small stone tablet standing by the side of the Netherworld pool. There were peculiar inscriptions on it, reminiscent of something that one would use in rituals. It looks similar to the altars of the otherworldly demonic tribe at first glance, but there are also many differences as well. He recalled how he had asked someone in the past which power in the firmament specialized in the usage of altars, and the answer that he had received was the experts of the Sky of Drifting Spectres. So, he wondered if the Sky of Drifting Spectre was related to the spirit god somehow, but the inscriptions on the stone tablet seemed to disprove it. In terms of construct and content, it was obvious that the inscriptions on the stone tablet were vastly different from those used by the otherworldly demonic tribe and Starchaser Palace. It seemed like the spirit god did not belong to the Sky of Drifting Spectre. Just as Zhongxian was about to walk over to the stone tablet to drip a blood droplet on it, the Netherworld pool suddenly began bubbling furiously. A series of apparitions gradually rose from the surface of the pool. There were many different types of people among the apparitions. There were those who were almost a Zhong tall, and there were those whose height barely reached that of a thumb. All in all, there were more than 1,000 people. As the water beneath them bubbled, they moved in response. The elusive energy that he felt previously scattered down on the apparitions, almost as if sunlight was shining on them. The larger apparitions slowly became more and more tangible, whereas the smaller ones flickered like candlelight, seemingly on the verge of extinguishing. Po! A thumb-sized apparition suddenly dissipated, vanishing from view. What happened? Zhongxian asked doubtfully. Those larger apparitions have more people thinking about them, so they receive more anima of yearning, which bulks them up. In contrast, the smaller apparitions are probably remembered only by some family members and friends. As time passes and their kin pass away, no one else in the world remembers them. Naturally, they run out of energy and extinguish. The guard glanced over at Zhongxian and shook his head. There are quite a few people who pay a hefty sum in order to leave their soul imprint here each year. They hope to somehow come back to life after their death, but the splendor of life only lasts while you are alive. Life is already tiring enough. How many people have the time to constantly keep you in their minds once you aren't around? More often than not, the anima of yearning that one receives comes solely from their closest kin and friends. It's actually a waste of money for most people to leave their soul imprint here. Only a very small proportion of them eventually earn sufficient anima of yearning to come back to life. But I guess it's still comforting to leave a spark of hope here. Death is something that is feared after all. Zhongxian could relate to those words. All sentiments, be it gratitude, love, or hatred, were transient. There are things that we tell ourselves never to lose sight of no matter what happens, but time has the mysterious ability to dull out those emotions and make us forget. This reminded Zhongxian of web novel authors in his previous life. If they just stopped updating for a few days, the readers would have already forgotten about them. Once a person was forgotten by most people, the anima of yearning that they received would become so small that even maintaining their current state was difficult, let alone coming back to life. Just as the guard had said, it was probably just the possibility of it happening that comforted people from the fear of death. In the entire history of the firmament, there were probably no more than a handful of people who had succeeded in doing so. Who is that tallest apparition here? He looks like he'll be ready to revive soon, Zhongxian asked curiously. Based on what had been said thus far, it seemed like the size of the apparitions was indicative of the amount of anima of yearning they had accumulated. Those who had gotten beyond a certain size should be able to be revived. He could not help but wonder what that towering apparition of over a zhong in height had done, such that he would be so dearly remembered by those around him. I don't know who he is exactly. He suddenly appeared 40 years ago. We aren't able to see his appearance clearly, and we couldn't find a record that corresponds to him. As such, we aren't too sure about who he is, the guard replied. Even an anonymous person is able to receive anima of yearning in the netherworld pool? Zhong Xian was slightly surprised. The anima of yearning is generated based on those who remember him. As long as there are people who keep him in their heart, he will be able to receive the anima of yearning. There isn't a need for everyone to remember him. After all, there are god kings whose souls have been in the netherworld pool for over 1,000 years, and it's inevitable that most people have already forgotten about them. Nodding quietly, Zhong Xian walked up to the stone tablet, bit his thumb, and dripped a droplet of fresh blood on it. Wang. As soon as the blood droplet landed, energy began rippling across the stone tablet. Following that, he felt something linking up together with his soul. At the same time, a small apparition roughly the size of a thumb appeared in the netherworld pool. This is my soul imprint. Zhong Xian was a little speechless at how small it was. The guard took a look at it and said, "It's not too bad given that you have just created it. Most people would not even be able to form an apparition when they first left their soul imprint on the stone tablet." The fact that the young man was able to create an apparition the size of a thumb showed that there were quite a few people who constantly thought of him. Are there usually differences in sizes when the apparitions are first formed? Zhong Xian asked. Most cultivators have smaller apparitions than this, and there were quite a few that can't even be seen with the naked eye, the guard replied. In the 20 years that I have worked here, the largest apparition I have seen upon formation is that of God King Bai Yi. He was killed during the flood of spiritual energy, and his subordinates placed his possessions in the netherworld pool. The next instant, an apparition of the size of a palm appeared inside. It really shocked quite a few people back then. Is God King Bai Yi extremely popular among the people? Zhong Xian asked. Well, that's not really the case. It was mainly because he had quite a few powerful subordinates under him. They were probably the ones generating the bulk of the anima of yearning, the guard replied. Does the anima of yearning generated have something to do with the strength of the people thinking of him? Of course. The stronger one is, the greater the sway they have over the world. Furthermore, their longer lifespan means that they will be able to generate more anima of yearning over the course of their life. Typically speaking, the amount of anima of yearning generated by a celestial god is 100 times that of a god, and the amount generated by a god king is 100 times that of a celestial god, and so on, the guard replied. Zhong Xian nodded in realization. If the anima of yearning was depicted to be a force of nature generated by a cultivator, it stood to reason that the strength of the cultivator would affect the amount of energy generated. It was common for humans to associate themselves with those who were like them. The reason it was more likely for those with higher cultivation to revive was not just because of how well known they were, but more importantly, their circle of family and friends were mostly powerful experts. With that, they would likely be able to revive. The guard chuckled. You're not too bad. The fact that your apparition is the size of a thumb shows that you are remembered not just by gods but by celestial gods as well. Celestial gods? Zhong Xian nodded contemplatively. Qi Ling'er and Zhong Jiao were both celestial gods, and they were both loyal to him. They were probably the ones who were generating his anima of yearning. He focused his consciousness on his soul, and he could vaguely feel some sort of energy flowing through the connection between his soul and the apparition to nourish his soul, causing his soul cultivation to grow. Seeing that it was working, he clasped his fist and bade his farewell. Shortly after Zhong Xian left, a guard walked in and asked the guard from before curiously, "How was it? What do you think of that fellow? His apparition is only around the size of a thumb. I reckon that it'll dissipate within less than half a year," the first guard scoffed. "Well, that's not too bad given that it's his first time here," the second guard replied. "I beg to differ," the first guard said. "If he's already desperately thinking of ways to keep himself alive when he's that young, I doubt that he'll be able to do anything great in the future. Even I look down on coward like him, so why would people think of him and admire him? I reckon that the only reason there are people still thinking of him is because they don't know his true personality. Once they learn who he is, their remembrance of him will probably stop right away." "That does make sense. Let's see how it turns out," the second guard replied with a slight chuckle. In the firmament, people carried great respect for the strong and the valiant. It would have been understandable if the young man was already in his later years and wished to seek a way to circumvent death. However, he was only in his early 20s, and he had a long life ahead of him. Yet, out of fear of death, he had actually spent such a hefty sum to leave his soul imprint there. From this, it was clear that the young man was a coward. How could a coward possibly win the respect of others and make others remember him? Even if he was able to create a decent-sized silhouette, chances were that it would dissipate soon enough. "Let's go," the first guard said as he turned around to leave the room. Suddenly, the netherworld pool began to shake. The two guards halted and turned around. The apparition left behind by the young man was trembling non-stop. Despite its small size, it was causing the entire pool to tremble ceaselessly. The two guards were perplexed for a moment before the first guard suddenly thought of something. His eyes narrowed as he said, "Could it be that more people have thought of him, causing more anima of yearning to surge over?" Boom. Shortly after those words were spoken, the thumb-sized apparition suddenly jolted and became the size of a palm. At the same time, its translucent silhouette became more tangible, making it look more lifelike. Even though there are quite a few people who are thinking of him, they are mostly gods. The effects are unlikely to be too long-lasting. Even though they had no idea why it took so long for this surge of anima of yearning to arrive, based on the concentration of it, they could tell that it mostly originated from God realm cultivators. While it did increase the size of the apparition, the increment was slight and unlikely to be long-lasting, given the short lifespan of gods. Boom. Before he could even finish those words, the palm-sized apparition suddenly began growing frenziedly at a visible rate. "This is the anima of yearning from a god king." The first guard was stunned. The other party was just a low-tier celestial god, so why would he receive anima of yearning from a god king? Who? The apparition suddenly grew once more. 2 god kings. The second guard was stunned as well. 3 god kings actually provided him with anima of yearning. Is that fellow really just a low-tier celestial god? The first guard muttered with trembling lips. It was just a moment ago that they had said that the apparition would disappear in less than half a year, but who could have known that the young man would suddenly receive such a huge surge in anima of yearning from innumerable gods and 3 god kings? Boom. The apparition suddenly grew once more, becoming the size of a normal human. The 2 guards looked at one another with their bodies trembling uncontrollably, as if they had just witnessed something unbelievable. It took some time before words finally came out of their mouths once more. "That is the anima of yearning from a conferred god king. 1 jong equals 3. 33 m. Chapter 2161. It's time to reveal my real skills. Strictly speaking, conferred god kings were considered god kings as well. The difference between the two lay in their conferment. Conferred god kings were bestowed with the powers of the heavens and the god monarchs, granting them far greater powers than ordinary god kings. The difference was such that even if a conferred god king remained completely still, a god king still would not be able to kill him. This was the absolute difference in powers between the two of them. For this reason, only powers that had a conferred god king were considered lasting, top-notch powers and could remain prosperous for millenniums. The only people who could make conferred god kings generate anima of yearning for them could only be experts of the same caliber or god monarch. It was unbelievable that this young man actually received anima of yearning from 3 god kings and a conferred god king. Was it possible that he was not an ordinary celestial god but actually a hidden powerhouse of the firmament? No matter who he isn't a person we can simply afford to gossip about. The first guard could barely say those words through his clattering teeth. It was just a moment ago that he thought the young man was cowardly and looked down on him for that. However, it was clear now that he was jumping too quickly to assumptions. There were simply too many things in this world that were beyond his understanding. "What is he called?" the second guard asked. The first guard was stumped by the question. He racked his brain for a moment, but he found that he actually did not remember the young man's name at all. "I don't know either." He assumed that the other party was just a rich young master from some affluent clan, so he did not bother asking for the other party's identity. He had thought that the other party's apparition would simply vanish soon enough, so it was inconsequential to remember the other party's name. He had never thought that the young man would be such a great figure. We should pretend that we didn't see anything for today. Otherwise, we might risk offending someone if we run our mouth recklessly. The second guard said. Yes, we should do that. The first guard nodded in agreement. If they were to say something that they should not, they would simply be bringing trouble to themselves. Their heads might even roll due to it. As soon as he left the Netherworld Palace, Zhongxian immediately felt himself receiving a surge of anima of yearning, allowing his soul cultivation to grow quite a bit. His thought process became a little faster, and his low-tier celestial god soul cultivation showed hints of making a breakthrough. It's indeed effective. Zhongxian's eyes lit up in delight. If he had chosen to cultivate normally, it would take several years of effort in order for him to raise his soul cultivation to middle-tier celestial god. However, even at the current rate it was growing, it would only take him several months. In other words, just by leaving his soul imprint in the Netherworld pool, he was able to increase the rate of his soul cultivation by tenfold. Once he carried out what he was planning, he should be able to raise his soul cultivation to the God King realm fast enough. It was no wonder Zhuo Feng had recommended this method. The effects were far better than expected. Furthermore, he did not have to do anything much. He had already tossed the bulk of the work over to others, so all he really had to do was wait for a huge gush of anima of yearning to come rolling in. So, he was able to pass his days leisurely in the time to come. Other than working on his soul cultivation, he would visit the master-teacher pavilion to conduct some lessons and impart knowledge to them. He won himself some die-hard fans among the students through his lessons, but he did not manage to earn any golden page. Just as he had thought before, as the culture of master-teachers was not as deeply ingrained in the firmament, there was a lack of respect and recognition toward teachers. What had happened with Zhuo Yang and Zhuo Feng was more of an exception due to their peculiar circumstances. Given so, it seemed like it would be much more difficult for him to earn golden pages there. That being said, even though he did not manage to earn any golden page, he did manage to bulk up his reputation quite a bit. As the number of people who were grateful to him increased, the rate at which his soul cultivation grew increased as well. On the 5th day, his soul cultivation finally rose from low-tier celestial god to middle-tier celestial god. He immediately had Qi Linger get him some high-tier god essence pills, and soon enough, his Junqi cultivation rose to middle-tier celestial god as well. High-tier god essence pills were resources that were mainly exclusive for the usage of god kings, making it impossible for ordinary cultivators to lay their hands on it. However, having received the go-ahead from the head and the old ancestor of the Qi clan, Qi Linger managed to procure this hard-to-acquire cultivation resource with ease, and at a relatively inexpensive price at that. 7 days passed in a flash. Of the 10,000 beauty pills, the Qi clan has taken in 1,000 of them, and I have managed to sell another 6,000. However, I reckon that the market in Drifting Spectre Royal City has already reached saturation at this point. It'll be hard to sell any more here, Qi Linger reported to Zhongxian. Due to the exorbitant price of the beauty pill, despite its miraculous effects in terms of aesthetics and cultivation, the number of people who could afford it was severely limited. That's already better than I thought, Zhongxian replied. He was very satisfied with Qi Linger's work. She had managed to push out the beauty pills into the market faster than expected, and she even managed to sell so many of them within such a short period of time. At the price of 1,500 divine coins each, 7,000 beauty pills would equate to a jaw-dropping sum of 10,500,000 divine coins. There were probably fewer than 20 powers in Drifting Spectre Royal City whose total fortune had reached that level. In other words, within just 7 days, he had transformed from a penniless outsider into one of the 20 wealthiest individuals within Drifting Spectre Royal City. Not even the Qi clan had the capacity to earn so much money within such a short period of time. Not only so, the name Zhongxian had spread far and wide within Drifting Spectre Royal City within those 7 days. He had gained lots of admirers and supporters, and his name would always come up whenever cultivators were gathered together. That was probably what people meant by becoming a household name. I have also sent out the invitations for the event that will be held later. Qi Linger continued her report. Based on the replies I have received so far, there will be distinguished figures from both within Royal City and the other skies joining us. In view of the large crowd that will be joining us, I have booked the largest square in Royal City. Just thinking about the huge commotion that they had stirred up in Royal City over the past few days left Qi Linge feeling a little overwhelmed. She could not believe that she was actually part of something so massive. Even the old ancestor of the Qi clan did not have the ability to rally so many experts and distinguished figures, but the young man standing before her had managed to do it. The main reason for that was not really because of the young man himself but the widespread popularity of the beauty pill throughout the firmament, which had grown tremendously over the past few days. Ladies would be able to preserve their youth by consuming it, and men could heal their internal traumas, enhance their talent, and advance their cultivation. The effects were nothing short of miraculous. It was for this reason that no one held any grudges against Zhongxian despite the exorbitant price of the pills. Of course, the positive reviews for the beauty pill were mostly due to Qi Linge's effort. She had really gone all out, tapping into all the connections the Qi clan had in order to ensure everything worked smoothly. On top of that, an incident that happened 4 days ago also played a crucial role in forging the reputation of the beauty pill. An affluent merchant of Royal City was reaching the limits of his lifespan, and just as everyone was making preparations for his impending passing, a junior of the family suddenly presented a beauty pill before him. And right after consuming the beauty pill, the bedridden merchant regained his vitality, leaped right up to his feet, and began running all around the residence to exert his overflowing energy. While no one knew how much longer his lifespan had been extended, judging from his newfound vigor, it was unlikely that he would pass away anytime soon. As soon as this news started spreading, many cultivators realized that the hype behind the beauty pill was not just for show, and the demand for the pill grew explosively. It was amazing that a pill could beautify a person, repair their internal traumas, and raise their talent. However, as most of those who were currently in power had already passed their prime, those benefits meant little to them. The only thing that really attracted them was the ability to extend their lifespan, and that was precisely what the beauty pill did too. It was due to this that the sales of the beauty pill exceeded Qi Linge's initial expectations by 2,000. However, what drew so many powerhouses and distinguished figures to gather together in drifting Spectre Royal City was not just the allure of the beauty pill. More importantly, it had something to do with the news that Zhongxian had tasked Qi Linge with releasing to the public. On the day of the event, the creator of the beauty pill would be releasing an inexpensive spiritual energy recovery pill with superior effects to what was available in the market, as well as the breakthrough pill aimed specifically at cultivator. The breakthrough pill was effective on all cultivators regardless of their cultivation realm. Be it a god or a celestial god, as long as they had reached the peak of their current cultivation realm, consuming it would increase their chances of making a breakthrough by 50%. Even the most potent breakthrough pill on the market at the moment could only increase the chances of making a breakthrough by 20%, and despite that, it was enough to make all cultivators go crazy over it. It was a known fact that it was a huge hurdle for a god to become a celestial god, and those who managed to overcome the hurdle would not only become much stronger, their lifespan would also increase by tenfold. Most importantly of all, it was said to have no side effects. In other words, it would not hinder one's cultivation in the future. With that alone, it was not too hard to imagine just how valuable the pill would be. All high-tier gods would probably be dying to lay their hands on it. As such, the news caused an even greater uproar than when people realized that the beauty pill had the ability to extend one's lifespan. If not for the precedents with the beauty pill, most people would probably have thought that it was all a hoax. Of course, there were still many people who doubted the matter, given how unbelievable it sounded, but nevertheless, most people were still hopeful. This was also the real reason that they were able to draw in such a huge crowd within such a short period of time. That's good. Zhongxian had been paying close attention on this matter over the last few days, and he knew that Qi Linge had done a good job carrying out the task that he had entrusted to her. With a nod of approval, he turned his gaze to Sun Qiong and asked, "How are things going on your side?" "Young master, the renovation of all 100 stores has been completed. General Zhuo Feng has also passed the God Essence tablets to me, and there are over 3 million of them at the moment. The jade bottles you requested are also ready," Sun Qiong reported proudly. He had slept less than 4 hours over the past 7 days, but even though it was exhausting, He was extremely satisfied with what he had accomplished. As Qi Linger had been constantly selling beauty pills, he did not face any difficulties in financing. This made it much easier for him to acquire the stores that he wanted. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for him to prepare 10 stores, let alone 100 of them. He respectfully presented a storage ring containing the pills and the jade bottles over to Zhongxian. Zhongxian quickly took a look at the contents in the storage ring before nodding in approval. He was aiming to tackle all segments of the market at once. The breakthrough pill was aimed at high-end customers, whereas the beauty pill was aimed at middle-class customers. Last but not least, the God Essence tablets that he had prepared were for the low-end customers, the ordinary cultivators of the firmament. These cultivators consisted of ordinary gods and semidivinities, so the amount of anima of yearning each of them generated was severely limited. However, what made them significant was the sheer number of them around. As long as he could open up this market and let everyone know of his name, he was certain that he would receive an endless influx of anima of yearning, allowing him to swiftly raise his soul cultivation to high-tier celestial god and beyond. He reckoned that Kongsha had probably used such a method to become the heaven subjugation monarch, the 10th god monarch of the firmament. Zhongxian continued asking a few questions, but it seemed like the two of them were extremely meticulous in their work, resolving all possible problems without a hitch. With a satisfied nod, he said, "Let's head to the square." Getting on top of an aerial celestial beast, the crowd swiftly made their way over to the square where the event was to be held. They had managed to gather the crowd they wanted, and everything was prepared and ready to go. So, all that was left was for Zhongxian to show them his true skills. As long as he could put on a good show. Pooey. How could he call this a show? He was a master teacher, and all of this was real. Anyway, as long as he performed well, he was certain that the name Zhongxian would be remembered by everyone in the sky of Drifting Spectre. As time passed, it would slowly spread to every nook and cranny of the firmament, thus allowing him to achieve his goals. Ruoxin, since I am unable to find you, I will become the brightest star in the firmament so that you can find me instead. Chapter 2162 Beitang Shui. It was not time yet, but the largest square of Drifting Spectre Royal City was already filled with a bustling crowd. Zhongxian expected to receive around 100,000 people at most, but it was clear with a glance that the scale of the crowd was far higher than that. There were already elevated platforms erected in the square for him to address the crowd. The entire place was jam-packed, such that there were some cultivators who chose to ride on aerial divine beasts in order to avoid being packed like sardines. There must be at least 500,000 people here, right? A grey-robed elder sitting on the back of an aerial divine beast looked down at the massive crowd below with a frown on his forehead. I can only say that the allure of the beauty pill is greater than I thought. The black-robed elder beside him replied. I have tried examining the content of the beauty pill, and no matter how I analyze the ingredients and the forging method, it appears to be no different to other low-tier god essence pills. It's baffling how it can bring out such miraculous effect. The grey-robed elder said with a shake of his head. Upon learning of the sudden spike in the popularity of the beauty pill, he had immediately ordered a subordinate to buy a couple of them for him to study. He had spent 3 whole days examining it from the outside to the inside, and the conclusion he had eventually arrived at was that it was simply an ordinary low-tier god essence pill. Back then, he had been shocked beyond words. A low-tier god essence pill could be bought for just 1 divine coin, and the cost of the beauty pill was a staggering 1,500 divine coins, yet, he could not call it a scam at all. He had tried out the effects, and it was as spectacular as the rumors made it out to be. A severe trauma that he had suffered many years ago was easily removed, and his complexion also looked much better than before. That was not something an ordinary god essence pill could do. Eventually, he could only give up on the notion of deciphering the beauty pill. It was also for this reason that he had rushed all the way here to attend this event. He was interested to see the genius who had forged such an amazing pill. I also tried studying the beauty pill, and I came to the same conclusion as you, the black-robed elder remarked with a bitter smile. I know many other apothecaries who tried to decipher the beauty pill. In fact, the Apothecary Guild of Royal City has been working tirelessly on it over the past few days. However, None of them have been able to figure out the secret behind its effects. I heard that the guild leader is on the verge of losing his mind. You are referring to Apothecary Ju Feng. The grey-robed elder looked over curiously. Yep, that's him, the black-robed elder replied. Ju Feng is Fu Jiangchen's direct disciple, right? His skills in pill forging should be far superior to the both of ours. He is unable to figure out the beauty pill, too, the grey-robed elder asked in disbelief. Fu Jiangchen was the most famous apothecary in the entire firmament. Rumor had it that he had once forged pills for the god monarchs. He had many disciples all over the firmament, and every single one of them was famous among the apothecaries. Ju Feng was known to be one of his better disciples. An apothecary that I have once taught is in Royal City's Apothecary Guild at the moment, and he told me about it. It seems like they bought 3 pills back when the beauty pill first appeared on the market, and they have examined the medicinal components and the forging techniques used for the pill innumerable times. The conclusion that they arrived at each and every time was the same. It is identical to how low-tier god essence pills are made, the grey-robed elder replied. It was no easy feat to reverse engineer the process of how a pill was made. It would take a great deal of knowledge, time, and effort. Nevertheless, it was still possible, and that was also how many of the exclusive pills eventually became less exclusive. There must be something inside the beauty pill that makes it different from the god essence pill, but we just aren't able to find it. The black-robed elder shook his fist in frustration. He knew for sure that there was something special about the beauty pill, but it was eluding their notice, and this left him feeling deeply exasperated. At this moment, the grey-robed elder beside him suddenly exclaimed in agitation, "Wait a moment. Look over there. Is that person Master Fu Jiangchen?" The black-robed elder immediately turned his head over and saw an aerial beast floating not too far away. Sitting at the very front of the beast was an old man with a snowy beard. There were a few other people standing diligently behind him, seemingly not daring to take a seat in his presence. One of them happened to be Apothecary Ju Feng, whom they had just spoken about. "It's him," the black-robed elder exclaimed in disbelief. "I had the honor of meeting him and listening to one of his lectures back when I was touring the Nine Skies. You don't know how impressed I was with his teachings. Why would he come here personally? Indeed. He's a God King realm expert, but he still came here personally. Could it be that he's researching the beauty pill too but was unable to make sense out of it?" the grey-robed elder asked hesitantly. That was the only reason he could think of. It's possible. But if even the most formidable apothecary in the firmament is unable to decipher the beauty pill, I can't begin to imagine how remarkable the person who forged the beauty pill is. The black-robed elder turned to the stage with an incredulous look in his eyes. That was Fu Jiangchen, a God King realm expert, as well as a person who had once forged pills for the god monarchs. If even he was unable to decipher the secrets of the beauty pill, this might be bigger than they thought. If the beauty pill is that formidable, why don't we just kidnap the apothecary and force him to reveal his pill formula? A middle-aged man amid the crowd asked his companions. Don't tell me that you are afraid of making a move just because we are in Drifting Spectre Royal City. As the capital of the sky of Drifting Spectre, rules were strictly enforced in Drifting Spectre Royal City. That being said, thievery still occurred from time to time. The beauty pill was obviously a business with tremendous potential for profits. Furthermore, its surfacing in the market had also affected the business of numerous apothecaries within Royal City. Given so, there were bound to be many people who would want to claim his life. Of course not. Do I look like a lawful citizen to you? The companion of the middle-aged man scoffed. Then, he shook his head and sighed. I dispatched a team of 3 high-tier celestial gods to kidnap him, but I suddenly lost contact with them in the midst of their mission. I tried looking into it, and it turns out that they were killed. 3 high-tier celestial gods have been killed. Is that apothecary that formidable? The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes in shock. Given the limited number of god kings and conferred god kings in the firmament, a group of 3 high-tier celestial gods could already be considered an elite force. Yet, all 3 of them ended up dying in the midst of their mission. Could the apothecary possibly be a god king? It's not that the apothecary is formidable. Rather, it's because of the Qi clan, his companion replied. The Chi clan? That's right. The clan head of the Chi clan has let out word that anyone who dares to touch the apothecary will be an enemy of their Chi clan. There was a god king who opposed the interference of the Chi clan, viewing it as tyranny. However, before he could even finish his words, he was struck with a heavy blow and evicted from Royal City. Rumor has it that it was the old ancestor of the Chi clan who made a move on him, his companion said. The old ancestor of the Chi clan? You are referring to conferred god King Chi Meng? The middle-aged man's face paled in fright. If the medicine was as invaluable as the rumors suggested, it was worth taking the risk to capture the apothecary and coerce the pill formula out of him. However, if the old ancestor of the Chi clan was involved, Chi Meng was a person who had once dominated the world alongside the Chenkuan demon monarch. His authority was unrivaled in the sky of drifting spectre. Unless the god monarch made a move, no one would be able to bear the burden of his rage. If the apothecary was under the protection of such a person, unless they were tired of living, they had better not lay their hands on the apothecary. You get it, right? I'm only telling you this because of our relationship. I advise you to rein in your thoughts, or else you won't even know what struck you when you die. The companion warned. If the apothecary did not have ways to protect himself after pushing out such a formidable medicine, he would have been killed many times over by now. The firmament, even in the capitals of the 9 skies, was not as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. In a massive floating manor in the sky of drifting spectre, a middle-aged man clasped his fist and reported, "Old ancestor, I have looked into that matter, and it was indeed the doing of that person from the Chi clan." A slightly bewildered voice echoed from the room. Chi Meng sustained grave injuries in the past, just like me, and his lifespan is already nearing its end. He has been lying low in order to avoid making any more enemies for the Chi clan, so why would he suddenly choose to protect a medicine peddler? Even if the pills sold are incredible, it's unlikely that they have much effect on a conferred god king. He was another conferred god king of the sky of drifting spectres, Beitang Shui. Having reached their level of cultivation, there were very few things that could catch their attention anymore. Most of them had retired from the secular world, wishing to live in peace and quiet. It was incomprehensible to him why Chi Meng would suddenly get involved in a matter as minor as this. Not only so, he even made a move on a god king and severely injured him. That was equivalent to offending the power behind the god king, thus creating another potential enemy for the Chi clan. I don't really know the details. So far, I only know that the Chi clan has bought 1,000 beauty pills for their younger generation, causing their potential and fighting prowess to grow significantly. This is especially so for Chi Yu. I heard that he has started to grasp the secrets of a god king, and it's likely that he will make a breakthrough in the near future, the middle-aged man reported. He's already on the verge of a breakthrough? Beitang Shui was taken aback. Is that medicine really that amazing? It is, the middle-aged man replied. He took out a jade container and presented it. Please, do take a look. Who? The jade container flew right into the room. Within the room, Beitang Shui picked up the pill and examined in bewilderment. Then, he swallowed it. This. Beitang Shui narrowed his eyes in shock. I sense the aura of a god monarch in the pill. God monarch? The middle-aged man jolted in horror. Indeed. If I'm not mistaken, this pill is indeed nothing more than an ordinary low-tier god essence pill. It's the infusion of a god monarch's zhenqi that resulted in its spectacular effects, Beitang Shui analyzed grimly. This is only my speculation at the moment. Based on what I know, the zhenqi of a real god monarch should be even purer than this. But at the same time, it shouldn't have the ability to heal internal traumas. I guess I'll have to meet Chi Meng to understand the situation. Together with Chi Meng, he had fought alongside the Chenkuan demon monarch a very long time ago, and they had been privileged to catch a glimpse of the overwhelming power that the god monarchs wielded. The energies that they wielded were extremely pure, and they emanated tremendous pressure that felt almost as if the whole world was crushing down on them. Such was the feeling that he felt from the beauty pill, but the prowess of the energy within had been dampened innumerable times. Old ancestor, are you planning to meet that person from the Chi clan? The middle-aged man asked. It's only right that I should. I thought that old fellow has decided to wash his hands of everything, but it seems like I have misjudged him. Instead, I am the one who is lagging behind. Even if the person who has forged the beauty pill isn't a god monarch, it's likely that he has close ties with one. Lag one step behind, and will always be a step behind them. It's one thing if we didn't know about this matter, but now that we have learned of it, we can't just turn a blind eye to it. Otherwise, our Beitang clan will forever be behind the Qi clan, Beitang Shui said as he rose to his feet. Even though he had no idea how the pill was forged, the fact that it was effective was enough to show that it was authentic. If there was something in the world that even a conferred god king like him was unable to comprehend, chances were high that a god monarch was involved. This was both an opportunity and a threat. If he could get on the bandwagon together with the Qi clan, there were great benefits to be earned. Otherwise, the Beitang clan would only start to lag behind the others. Chapter 2163. Is it a transaction error? In the depths of the floating mountain on which the Qi clan resided, old ancestor Qi Meng was sitting atop of a boulder with a fishing pole in his hands. In front of him was a small lake, and from time to time, one could see fish swimming by. Qi Meng sat there quietly without moving at all, as if a statue. However, at some point in time, a slight smile crept onto his lips, and he started speaking. You can ask me directly if you have any doubts in mind. There's no need to try sounding me out. There was no one in front of him when he said those words. Who? But shortly after he spoke, a figure suddenly appeared on the surface of the water. He appeared so abruptly that it seemed like he had teleported over. On top of that, his movements had not caused any disturbance in the wind, and there was not the slightest ripple to be seen atop the water. It was almost as if his presence was just a figment of one's imagination. The old ancestor of the Beitang clan, Beitang Shui. Old Qi, what's with the beauty pill and that Zhongxian fellow? Having expected to hear such questions, Qi Meng raised his hand and said, wait a moment. Shuntu Liuxiang is coming. I'll explain once he's here too. Shortly later, another figure appeared above the surface of the lake. He was the last conferred god king of Drifting Spectre Royal City, Shuntu Liuxiang. Follow me. Seeing that everyone was present, Qi Meng stood up. With a slight wave of his robe, a few ripples appeared in the air, and the next moment, he was already standing before the lucid lunar lake. Qi Meng turned to them and asked, are the two of you able to see the changes in the lake? The changes in the lake. The two conferred god kings took a closer look at the lake, and their faces immediately paled in astonishment. Is that the blood of a god monarch? The aura in the lucid lunar lake was extremely chaotic. There were all sorts of blood essences and medicinal herbs mixed in, making it difficult to accurately discern what was inside with just a glimpse. Nevertheless, the two of them were still able to tell the difference with a glance. The lucid lunar lake had just been an ordinary body tempering location in the past. Even though it was indeed one of the better ones in the sky of Drifting Spectre, it was still possible to find better ones in the world. However, after it had been mixed together with the blood of a god monarch, it had become a blessed land for cultivation, probably second only to the deathless lava reservoir. That's right. Qi Meng nodded. Are you able to tell which god monarch it belongs to? This. Beitang Shui extended his spiritual perception across the entire lake, and a moment later, he quickly turned to look at Shuntu Liuxiang, as if seeking confirmation from him. The two of them nodded before Beitang Shui hesitantly asked, is it the god monarch of the sky of deathlessness? That's what I thought. Qi Meng nodded in agreement. The lake became like that after Zhongxian cultivated here. That being said, even though the energies within have become much more potent than before, it can't be used anymore. The ability of the lucid lunar lake to temper a cultivator's body did become more effective after being mixed with the blood of a god monarch, but at the same time, the energies had gotten even more violent, making it infeasible for any cultivator to enter it. God monarchs were lofty existences. Their blood essence was not something that just any cultivator could easily absorb. In its current state, even a genius of Qi Yu's caliber would not dare approach it carelessly. Thinking about how the lucid lunar lake, which he had spent a heavy price to create, had been crippled just like that, he could not help but feel a little stifled inside. The other two conferred god monarchs were rendered speechless by that news. It took a while before Beitang Shui asked uncertainly, "What you mean to say is that there's a good chance that Zhongxian is?" He finally understood why the Qi clan would go all out to support Zhongxian, even at the risk of offending other powers. In the end, it was because an even higher power had gotten involved. All in all, including the Heaven Subjugation Monarch, there were only 10 god monarchs in the firmament. There were 2 of them who never appeared before others, namely the god monarchs of the Sky of Freedom and the Sky of Heavenly Sword. In other words, there were only 8 active god monarchs in the world. It was viewed as the greatest honor in the firmament to be related with a god monarch in one way or another, no matter how shallow it might be. The act of a god monarch dropping by the Qi clan to cultivate and altering the nature of the lucid lunar lake was proof of such a relationship. As conferred god kings, they wielded strength that was envied by the entire world. However, they knew full well that the strength they possessed was nothing before the god monarchs. "Wait a moment, that's not right." Shuntu Liuxiang suddenly spoke up at this moment. "If it's that person's blood, even if this place didn't become on par with the deathless lava reservoir, it still shouldn't pale too far in comparison to it. Do you remember just how terrifying the deathless lava reservoir was? Except for the people whom he has explicitly acknowledged, no one will be able to enter it without paying a heavy price, and that includes conferred god kings like us. However, it's clear that the lucid lunar lake hasn't reached such a level. We are still able to absorb spiritual energy from it, which shows that the blood in the lake is still far from reaching the level of a god monarch, no matter how similar they might be. The blood of a god monarch should harness enough power to easily destroy the entire floating mountain that they were on. It was true that the lucid lunar lake had changed under the effects of the blood, but in terms of power, it was severely lacking. This disproved what they had said so far. This is also what's left me baffled. However, you should have also heard of the situation of that person from the Sky of Deathlessness, Qi Meng said carefully. Recalling the rumors that they had heard a while back, the 2 conferred god kings fell deep into contemplation. A long time later, Beitang Shui raised his head and said, "If that's really the case, we'll have to report this matter to his sovereignty." Qi Meng shook his head. "His sovereignty has gone to the Akron Ocean, so we won't be able to get in contact with him anytime soon." Akron Ocean? The other 2 asked in bewilderment. They had not heard of this matter. "His sovereignty intends to forge a body for that person who appeared in the Netherworld pool a month ago," Qi Meng replied. "I see." The 2 of them nodded in agreement. Just a month earlier, a soul had appeared in the Netherworld pool. The soul was exceptionally powerful, and it swiftly caught the attention of Chenkuan Demon Monarch. In order to groom the soul, the latter went to the extent of using his spacetime abilities just so that it could improve swiftly. Even though the powers of the soul had not reached conferred god king yet, it was already strong enough to subdue most god kings. The Chenkuan Demon Monarch was even going to the Akron Ocean to forge a body for it. It was no exaggeration to say that he was sparing no efforts in this. This is the first time that his sovereignty has been so concerned about another person, Shuntu Liuxiang remarked curiously. "I really wonder what's so special about that soul. Is that soul a lady?" Putting aside god kings, even conferred god kings would be nothing special in the eyes of a god monarch. After all, it was the god monarch who conferred their powers in the very first place. Such a powerful expert was actually forging a body for a mere soul. It would be a lie if they said that they were not intrigued. They had known Demon Monarch Chenkuan for many years, but they had never seen such a side to him before. Could it be that the soul had caught Demon Monarch Chenkuan's affection? Qi Meng's eyebrows shot up, and he swiftly warned the other 2, "Watch your word." Shuntu Liuxiang laughed awkwardly and said, "Ha ha ha, it was just a passing remark." He had no intention of probing into Demon Monarch Chenkuan's secrets. It was just that he was curious, and those 2 in front of him were old friends as well. That was why he could not help but be a little more chatty than usual. "I have heard some things about this matter. It's said that the soul came from the lower worlds, but the soul isn't a lady. It seems like after the soul was infused with the anima of yearning, the constitution it displayed became bizarrely similar to that of his sovereignties. It was out of curiosity that his sovereignty decided to lend the soul a hand. Beitang Shui revealed what he had heard. The Qiankuan demon monarch had washed his hands of the affairs of drifting spectre royal city, so they were in charge of most matters. Due to this, they were able to learn of many secrets that others did not know about. Upon hearing that it was not a lady, the other two nodded quietly in relief. Regardless of whether Zhongxian is related to that person from the sky of deathlessness or not, this matter is already beyond our jurisdiction. I don't think that it's wise for us to make a reckless move, Qimeng said. Now that you have learned the truth from me, I trust that you would know what you should and should not do. Let's part here and do what we should do then. Shuntu Liuxiang and Beitang Shui nodded in agreement before disappearing. Conferred god kings did not have the ability to teleport, but the sheer speed that they were able to move at had already surpassed what the eye could see, thus creating an effect similar to that. Drifting Spectre Royal City, Netherworld Pool. The guard who had received Zhongxian back then entered the Netherworld Pool once more to examine the situation there. Over the past 7 days, Zhongxian's apparition had become bigger than that of an ordinary human. Furthermore, his figure was gradually getting more and more corporeal, and the aura that he emanated felt heavier than ever. There are even more people providing him with anima of yearning now. There is such a huge increase in the number of gods and celestial gods. The guard gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Previously, when the anima of yearning generated by a conferred god king and 3 god kings allowed the apparition to grow to the size of a real human, they had thought that it would be hard for the young man to do anything more than that. They did not think that it would continue to grow further at such a swift pace. But this time, as the anima of yearning came mostly from gods and celestial gods, the effects were not as pronounced. It's just that the anima of yearning coming from gods and celestial gods is still a little lacking. If he could receive the acknowledgement of a few other god kings, he might just become the second largest apparition in here, the second guard remarked with a nod. You're right, but it isn't that easy to gain the support of a god king. It's already amazing that he has been acknowledged by 3 god kings. It's hard to imagine him going any further than that. The first guard shook his head. But before he could finish his words, the apparition suddenly jolted once again. Boom! It began expanding swiftly, reaching 2 times its previous size in an instant. Just like that, its height surpassed a Zhong-L, making it the largest apparition in the Netherworld Pool. This is the anima of yearning from 2 conferred god kings. The knees of the 2 guards caved in, and they immediately fell to the ground. The excessive shock had left them speechless, and they felt like they would lose their minds. Just a moment ago, they had said that it was no easy feat to receive the acknowledgement of god kings, and then the apparition suddenly received the anima of yearning from 2 more conferred god kings. In the entire firmament, there were only around 30 conferred god kings in total. On average, a god monarch would only receive anima of yearning from 3 conferred god kings. But this young man had actually managed to do that. Just what in the world was his background? For a long while, the 2 of them could only look at each other in astonishment. In the end, it seemed like they had still underestimated that young man's limits. Upon reaching the vicinity of the square, Zhongxian was shocked by how packed the entire area was. The crowd that was present far exceeded his wildest imagination. Taking a deep breath, he maneuvered the aerial celestial beast to bring him to the stage so that he could begin his performance. But at that instant, he suddenly felt a surge of warmth in his soul, and his soul cultivation suddenly began growing once more. It did not take long for his soul cultivation to reach middle-tier celestial god pinnacle, putting him a step away from reaching high-tier celestial god. What's going on? Zhongxian was stunned. He had not even started his performance. Did someone transfer their anima of yearning to him by accident? 1. A Zhong equals 3. 33m. Chapter 2164 Fu Jiangchen. It had not been too long since Zhongxian's soul cultivation reached middle-tier celestial god. According to his estimations, it should still have taken him around half a month before he could raise it to the level of a high-tier celestial god. Yet, why did his soul cultivation suddenly experience such a massive growth spurt? It was as if the ordinary stream of anima of yearning flowing into him had suddenly turned into raging river. At this rate, I'll be able to advance my soul cultivation to high-tier celestial god by tonight. Zhongxian nodded in satisfaction. When he first made a breakthrough to celestial god, he had been a youth filled with hope and ambition. He had thought that he could reach God King within just a few days, but after a week passed, he had not even reached high-tier celestial god. He felt deeply embarrassed by his inability. If his cultivation continued stalling as it was, he had no idea how he was going to face his students in the future. Under the tutelage of the god monarchs, they were bound to have many resources at their disposal. Given so, it was to be expected that their cultivation would surge like never before. Cultivation sure was tough. It was filled with the blood, sweat, and tears of the cultivators. He was really starting to understand why people would say such words. Heaving a deep sigh, Zhongxian leaped onto the stage together with Qilinger and the others. Seeing that the star of the show had arrived, the crowd immediately fell silent, and intrigued gazes turned their way. Is that the apothecary who forged the beauty pill? He looks so young. Not only is he young, he's quite dashing too. Fine, I'll admit it. I'm interested in him, all right? More like you're interested in his beauty pill. With the rising popularity of the beauty pill and the name Zhongxian, people started to become interested in what this rumored apothecary would look like. There were many who thought that he would be a decrepit old man who had devoted all of his life to forging pills. No one expected him to just be a young man in his early 20s. Most importantly of all, he was good-looking. A person blessed with both looks and talent was bound to be popular among the ladies. The eyes of many fangirls among the crowd became glazed with excitement. Qilinger stepped forward and started speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to have all of you here with us today. I am Qilinger from the Qi clan, and I was the one who extended the invitations to you all. As a low-tier celestial god, she was still unable to project her voice properly to ensure that everyone amid the crowd could hear her. As such, formations were prepared beforehand to ensure that her message reached everyone, regardless of how far they were or the distractions around them. Qilinger was new to the circles in Royal City, but the fact that she had the full support of the Qi clan in organizing this event told everyone loud and clear that she had substantial say within the Qi clan. It would be foolish to make an enemy out of someone who had powerful backing within the Qi clan. The person standing beside me is Zhongxian, the apothecary behind the beauty pill. I invited all of you here not just to talk about the beauty pill but to introduce all of you to 2 new pills that Apothecary Zhong has come up with, Qilinger said before stepping back to pass the stage over to Zhongxian. I believe most of you present here should be quite familiar with the effects of the beauty pill, Zhongxian said. Most of those who were present had either heard of the effects of the beauty pill or were direct beneficiaries of it. Otherwise, who had the time to participate in a meaningless gathering that they could not get anything out of? The beauty pill can nourish your skin, making it more tender and suppler than before, Zhongxian said. Aside from that, it can also heal your internal traumas and even extend your lifespan slightly. There are some among the crowd who have tried the pill out themselves and spoken about it, so I won't talk too much about it. Just as Qilinger mentioned, the aim of this event is to introduce the 2 new pills that I have recently perfected. First and foremost, I would like to introduce an upgraded version of the beauty pill, and that is none other than the breakthrough pill. The information I relayed to you previously through the invitations contains no falsehood nor exaggeration. It does have the effect of increasing the chances of a cultivator making a breakthrough by 50%, which means that those who consume this pill is almost guaranteed to be able to overcome the bottleneck they are facing. One thing that concerns most people about such pills is the major side effects they come with, but I can assure you that the breakthrough pill has none. You need not worry about facing any hindrances in your cultivation because you have consumed the breakthrough pill before. On top of that, the breakthrough pill also carries the benefits of the beauty pill as well. It can make your skin more supple, heal your internal traumas, and extend your lifespan. And most importantly of all, it's delicious. Increase the probability of making a breakthrough by 50%. That's almost an assurance of a breakthrough. It also has the effects of the beauty pill too. Most cultivators can increase their chances of making a breakthrough by 20% by reinforcing their cultivation properly. If they consume the breakthrough pill on top of that, the chances will be raised to a mind-boggling 20%. That's insane. What's more, he mentioned that there are no side effects. Isn't that crazy? Such discussions could be heard throughout the crowd. Many of the experts riding on aerial divine beasts were tempted by what Zhongxian had said. They might not need the pill themselves, but they could still get one for their offspring. It would allow them to bulk up their forces within a short period of time, and that would be the key for them to expand their influence. Standing on top of an aerial celestial beast, Zhu Feng looked at the elder sitting in front of him and asked in bewilderment, "Teacher, is it really possible for such a pill to exist?" The most famous apothecary of the firmament, Fu Jiangchen, "I can't say for sure whether it truly exists or not, but it's best not to make judgments too quickly. There are far too many things that are beyond our understanding in this world. Let's continue watching. We'll be able to tell once the pill appears," Fu Jiangchen replied without tearing his eyes away from the stage. As a god king, he had already lived for several thousand years and encountered many unbelievably talented individuals. Going by his common sense, he thought that a pill that could increase a person's chances of making a breakthrough by 50% was utterly ridiculous, and something as convenient as that could not possibly exist. But nothing was absolute. Just a few decades back, the heaven subjugation monarch had also achieved what most people thought was impossible. It might be the same for this young man. I understand that you may harbor some doubts regarding what I have just said, so I have brought the pill here in order to demonstrate its effect. With a flick of his wrist, Zhongxian took out a jade container and opened it. A round pill appeared before everyone's view. There was no amazing pulsation of spiritual energy or incredible emanation of aura. Looking at it from afar, the pill simply looked ordinary. That is a middle-tier god essence pill, right? I have been forging that pill for 100 years now, so there's no way I wouldn't recognize it. The beauty pill looks identical to the low-tier god essence pill, whereas the breakthrough pill looks identical to the middle-tier god essence pill. Can't he choose another look for his pills? The crowd frowned upon seeing the pill. Even Fu Jiangchen was speechless. He had thought that he would at least be able to discern the effectiveness of the pill just by looking at it, but it seemed like he was thinking too much. From the moment he saw the breakthrough pill, he realized that it would be just like the beauty pill. Even if he sliced it apart and analyzed it for days, he still would not be able to figure out the secrets behind it. That person sure is a rare prodigy when it comes to forging pills. Fu Jiangchen sighed deeply. "Teacher, what makes you say that?" Zhu Feng asked. The young man had not even demonstrated the effects of the pill yet, but his teacher was already complimenting him in advance. No matter what kind of pill it is, there are usually signs that allow us to identify its true nature. Recovery pills are bound to contain the blood agglutination grass or the anti-clotting flower. Breakthrough pills are usually made with the breakthrough flower or the meridian soothing fragrance. However, the beauty pill that the young man has made, despite its amazing effects, appears to be no different from a god essence pill. Do you know the reason behind that? Fu Jiangchen asked. Zhu Feng shook his head. If he knew the truth, he would not have gone to the extent of inviting his teacher there to decipher the young man's secrets. It's simple. The young man used a special forging technique to conceal the secrets behind his pill, Fu Jiangchen replied. Conceal? Is that possible? Zhu Feng asked in confusion. Instead of answering his disciple's question directly, Fu Jiangchen asked him a question instead. The low-tier god essence pill is one of the most basic pills in the firmament. With your current ability, in how many ways do you think you are able to forge a low-tier god essence pill? About several hundred ways, I guess, Zhu Feng replied. To put it simply, the low-tier god essence pill was basically the act of drawing out spiritual energy from medicinal herbs and sealing it within a physical container. There were many different combinations of medicinal herbs and forging techniques that could achieve the same effect, so the only issue was with finding the most efficient and economical way to do it. The reason you are able to deduce hundreds of ways to forge a low-tier god essence pill is mainly due to your strong foundations as an apothecary. You don't just blindly follow pill formulas. You understand the nature of medicinal herbs well, and you are able to deduce how different medicinal herbs interact with one another under different conditions. That, in turn, allows you to come up with multiple ways to create a certain effect. Fu Jiangchen's gaze moved over to the young man on the stage, and a hint of reverence flickered across his eyes. It's the same for the young man over there. Even though the breakthrough pill that is forged appears to be no different from a middle-tier god essence pill, such that it's impossible to perceive the difference by spiritual perception, in truth, he has already refined it with many invaluable medicinal herbs. He intentionally chose to forge it in the form of a middle-tier god essence pill in order to conceal his pill formula and prevent copycats from emulating what he has done. That would really be an amazing feat. Ju Feng widened his eyes in realization. In a sense, what that young man did was similar to how poison users in the firmament could sneak lethal poison into ordinary pills without anyone noticing. It was just that what the young man was concealing was not poison but the true nature of his breakthrough pill, and that made perfect sense. After all, how could a middle-tier god essence pill increase the chances of a person making a breakthrough by 50%? Over on the stage, Zhongxian was still going. All words are empty until they are proven to be true. Since I have brought the pill out, it goes without saying that I should demonstrate the effects to assure all of you that this is no sham. Is there anyone who is interested in trying out the breakthrough pill? In order to eliminate speculations that I am putting on an act, I'll need that person to be a distinguished individual who has great credibility in Drifting Spectre Royal City. On top of that, they need to be on the verge of a breakthrough. The purpose of the demonstration was to convince the crowd that the breakthrough pill was truly as effective as he had made it out to be. Thus, it would be meaningless if the person that he selected was not credible enough to convince everyone that they were not conning them. I am Zhong Heng from Drifting Spectre Royal City's City Guards. My cultivation has been stuck at high-tier god pinnacle for more than a decade now, and all of the guards in the city can testify on my behalf. Before anyone could react, an old man had already volunteered himself and leaped onto the stage. What's the use of having the guards testify for you? Who knows whether they are covering up for you? Let me do it instead. I am a mercenary from the awesome escort group. My cultivation is currently at low-tier celestial god pinnacle, and the butler of the Qi clan can vouch for me. All of you lack credibility, let me do it instead. A huge uproar broke out, and within just a few moments, 40 people had already leaped onto the stage. They were not fully convinced that the breakthrough pill was true, but the young man's act of gathering such a huge crowd to announce the product's launch, as well as the fact that the Qi clan was giving him their full support, sparked some hope in them. There was a fair chance that it might just be real, and it would be the golden opportunity for them to make a breakthrough. So, they decided to take the risk and volunteer themselves. Seeing that there were suddenly so many people standing before him, Zhongxian was left a little conflicted as to who he should choose. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in the air. May I volunteer one of my juniors instead? Following that, Fu Jiangchen finally rose to his feet. Chapter 2165 just 998, it's the number one apothecary of the firmament, Fu Jiangchen, hey, hold on for a moment. He might be the most famous apothecary in the firmament, but he still not number one, right? I heard that the Heaven Subjugation Monarch is a true maestro in pill forging as well, and there's no one in history who has even come close to what he has accomplished. What the hell are you thinking about, comparing a god king to a god monarch? Of course, there's no way a god king can compete with a god monarch, but putting aside the god monarchs, Fu Jiangchen's skills are top tier. Even if he isn't number one, he's definitely ranked within the top 5. I guess I can't disagree with that. Speaking of which, shouldn't he be in the sky of Linglong? Why's he here? The crowd swiftly recognized Fu Jiangchen's identity, and gossip ensued. Putting aside the fact that he was a god king, just his identity as the most formidable apothecary was enough for him to be known all around the firmament. Zhongxian did not recognize Fu Jiangchen, but he could tell that the latter was no ordinary figure just by gauging the reactions of the crowd. So, he nodded and said, "Of course, you are more than welcome to do so." Without standing on ceremony, Fu Jiangchen raised his hand, and a young man behind him leaped down from the celestial beast and landed on the stage. He's my grandstudent, Han Qi. He's a high-tier god, and as it hasn't been long since he reached that cultivation realm, I estimate the chances of succeeding if he attempts a breakthrough right now are around 30%, Fu Jiangchen said. Since his grandstudent was the one chosen to test the breakthrough pill, it was only right for him to explain everything clearly. Otherwise, it would ruin his reputation if others accused him of colluding together with the young man. Right after Fu Jiangchen said those words, on the stage, Han Qi immediately displayed his cultivation to the crowd. He was indeed a high-tier god, but there were hints that his cultivation was still a little loose and had not been reinforced yet. This showed that it had not been long since he made his breakthrough. We trust Apothecary Fu's integrity. Given his standing, there's no reason for him to lie. I trust him as well. I have long heard of Apothecary Fu's impartial character. Shouts of support for Fu Jiangchen swiftly filled the entire square. The crowd would have harbored some doubts no matter who Zhongxian chose from the crowd. Given the Qi clan's influence, it was very possible for anyone to collude with them. However, it was a whole different matter if the one who volunteered was Fu Jiangchen. As one of the few god kings in the firmament, there was no need for Fu Jiangchen to intentionally suck up to anyone. Furthermore, in the thousands of years since he came to fame as the #1 apothecary of the firmament, he had been known to be a fair and impartial person. There were hardly any negative rumors about him, which made him a highly credible person. Since he was getting involved, it should be safe to trust the results of the test. Let's begin the test, Zhongxian said. He had thought that he would still have to spend a bit of effort in order to win the crowd's trust, but Fu Jiangchen's intervention had spared him the hassle. With a flick of his finger, Zhongxian passed the pill in the container right over to Han Qi. Han Qi grabbed the pill and swallowed it right away. Hong Long. Rich spiritual energy immediately surged into his dantian. Not daring to hesitate in the least, Han Qi immediately sat down and began assimilating the medicinal energy within the pill. Meanwhile, the crowd beneath watched the scene with bated breaths. None of them dared say a word, fearing that they would interrupt his cultivation. Fortunately, this did not continue too long. In less than 3 minutes, the crowd could clearly sense Han Qi's divine energy accumulating at a swift pace, and a loud thunderous rumbling could be heard from his body. The sound grew louder and louder before reaching a climax. Boom! Everything accumulated into an explosion, and a powerful aura surged right into the sky. In that instant, Han Qi managed to overcome the bottleneck capping his cultivation. He made a breakthrough just like that. It hasn't even been 5 minutes yet. The crowd gulped in shock. Nearly none of the cultivators in the firmament thought of becoming a god king, making celestial god realm the greatest trial of their life. Many gods struggle desperately their entire lives to reach this goal, only to find that their efforts had been futile. Yet, the young man in front of them had succeeded in less than 5 minutes. Was that breakthrough pill really that remarkable? Fu Jiangchen also narrowed his eyes in disbelief. He was capable of forging pills that increased the chances of a god becoming a celestial god, but the most effective pill that he could make would only increase the chances by 20%, and a person could only afford to consume one in their entire life or risk severe side effects. In fact, even if the other party's pill was capable of increasing the chances of a breakthrough by 50%, the breakthrough should not have come so quickly. Given his understanding of his grandstudent's capabilities, his grandstudent should still have needed to circulate his divine energy several dozen times in order to refine it sufficiently, and that should have taken at least 15 hours. Yet, the duration taken was reduced to a mere 5 minutes. It seemed like the breakthrough pill was even more powerful and frightening than expected. He anxiously turned to his grandstudent and asked, "How do you feel?" At this moment, Han Qi had barely managed to stabilize his cultivation. With a brilliant gleam in his eyes, he stood up and said, "It is even more amazing than I thought. Instead of 50%, it feels like the breakthrough pill has increased my chances by at least 60% or more." Knowing his own condition well, Han Qi knew that the chances of him making a breakthrough at this very moment was extremely slim. Claiming that his probability of success was 30% was flattering him, yet, he managed to achieve a breakthrough so easily and so smoothly, as if there was no bottleneck at all. In his opinion, the breakthrough pill was far more effective than what the young apothecary had said. In fact, He was willing to go as far as to say that the breakthrough pill had increased the odds of him making a breakthrough to 100%. Is it really that remarkable? Fu Jiangchen was stunned to hear how high an opinion Han Qi had of the breakthrough pill. I dare not lie to you, Grand Teacher Fu. I swear on my pride as an apothecary and my own life that there isn't the slightest falsehood in my word. Han Qi replied solemnly. Hearing how Han Qi was willing to even swear on it, the crowd, who were harboring some doubts after hearing his unbelievable claims, fell silent in shock. This was exactly the effect that Zhong Xian wanted to create through the demonstration, and he knew that he should strike while the iron was hot. So, he stepped forward and began speaking. Thank you for your words, Brother Han. I believe that this should be enough to prove that there has been no exaggeration on my part regarding the effects of the breakthrough pill. Right now, I shall announce the price of the pill and the quantity that will be on sale today. Those words immediately snapped the crowd out of their daze, and they hurriedly shifted their attention back to him. This was the main point of the show. No matter how formidable the breakthrough pill was, it would be meaningless if they could not afford it. There was a brief pause at this moment, which caused the crowd to fidget anxiously, before Zhong Xian began speaking. As a pill that allows a cultivator to overcome his bottleneck, the price of the breakthrough pill is naturally even higher than that of the beauty pill. The sales price of the beauty pill is 1,500 divine coins, and the breakthrough pill happens to be 10 times that. In other words, 15,000 divine coins. 15,000 divine coins? Isn't that daylight robbery? That's too expensive. Most cultivators wouldn't be able to buy it even if they were to save a lifetime's worth of fortune. Even though it's exorbitant, if the effects are really as amazing as we saw, it would indeed be worth that price. Bitter looks emerged on the faces of the crowd upon hearing the price. 15,000 divine coins. That was enough for one to buy a house near the heart of drifting Spectre Royal City, and to dump that humongous wealth on a single pill. Then again, even though it might appear as if there was only the difference of a word between a high-tier god and a low-tier celestial god, it signified a difference in the level of existence. If the breakthrough pill really allowed one to overcome this difference, it would be worth it no matter how much one spent. The difference in terms of lifespan and standing could not be bought with any amount of money until the launch of the breakthrough pill. Do you think that it's too expensive? Zhong Xian asked as he looked at the faces amid the crowd. Then, a smile appeared on his lips as he said, I think so, too. It's the first day I'm unveiling the breakthrough pill, and if I were to go with that pricing, most of you would probably be scared off. For this reason, just for today, you won't need 15,000, 12,000, or even 10,000. All you need is 9,980. Yes, you didn't hear wrong. At just 9,980 divine coins, you will be able to buy a breakthrough pill. Make no mistake, what you will be buying here is not just a pill. At a price lower than 10,000 divine coins, you will be able to secure assurance for you or a loved one's brighter future. 9,800 divine coins? That's not even 10,000. This is great. The price dropped a third just like that. The eyes of the crowd immediately turned fiery hot. 9,980 divine coins was still an exorbitant price for a single pill, but it was much better than the previous offer of 15,000 divine coins. To secure a chance to make a breakthrough to the celestial god realm at a price less than 10,000 divine coins, was there a better deal than this? As long as one had the financial resources to do so, one would be a fool not to buy the pill. I want it. Apothecary Zhong, I'll get 2 pills. 4 pills for me, 4 pills for me. The crowd was immediately provoked into action. Seeing how the brainwashing television advertisement tactics from his previous life had managed to rouse the crowd into action, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He raised his hand and said, Please calm down for a moment. It's not that I am unwilling to sell the pills to all of you, but the forging process is extremely complex. Due to the limitations I have as a result of the ingredients and my own energy, I don't have enough breakthrough pills to satisfy everyone. Right now, I only have 100 breakthrough pills with me, and once they are all sold out, I can't guarantee when there will be a second batch or whether there will even be a second batch at all. Scarcity marketing. Even if he could produce breakthrough pills easily, He knew better than to take his whole stockpile out at once. Otherwise, its value would plummet, and the crowd would swiftly forget about him. If so, he would not be able to receive a steady stream of anima of yearning from them anymore. Did you hear that? There are only 100 pills. Hurry up and get our family to prepare the money. What? Are you seriously asking me how we are going to raise the money? Use your brains. Sell our house, sell our beasts. Just raise the money needed right now. As long as I can make a breakthrough to Celestial God, we'll be able to buy as many houses as we want in the future. Hey, handsome fellow. Won't you buy me a breakthrough pill? If you can get me one, I'll be yours for tonight. The hell? Even if I have to pawn away everything in my home, you can be darned sure that I will be getting one of those breakthrough pills. Or, stop trying to jump the queue. Do it again and I'll slit your neck. Everyone went crazy in an instant. There was nearly no one who could keep their cool in the face of this massive temptation. Watching this entire scene, it took Fu Jiangchen a long while before he was finally able to close his agape mouth. He was the most prestigious apothecary in the entire firmament, and his pills were greatly sought after by all cultivators. There were many who would kneel before him just to get him to forge a pill for them. But none of that came close to being as crazy as the chaos happening right before him. The breakthrough pill had not even started selling, but people were already so inflamed that they looked as if they would come to blows with one another. Everyone, I haven't finished speaking yet. Zhong Xian quickly raised his hand as an indication for the crowd to keep quiet. Then, with a nod, he continued. There's no need for you to worry about where you can buy the breakthrough pills. Later, when this event is over, you can proceed to where Qi Linger is to make a reservation with her. As long as you are within the first 100 registrants, you will be given priority in the purchase of the breakthrough pill. Aside from that, I'll also be lowering the price of the beauty pill from 1,500 divine coins to just 998 today. There will be 3,000 of them on sale, and it will also be on a first-come first-serve basis. After today, the prices will revert to normal. Those words caused another flurry of excitement amid the crowd. Those who had not managed to buy a beauty pill thus far trembled in excitement. The breakthrough pill costs 9,980 divine coins, whereas the beauty pill costs 998 divine coins. I know that this price might be far beyond what some of our less privileged friends here can afford. However, worry not. The last pill that I have prepared today is just for you. Zhong Xian gestured to Qi Linger, and the latter immediately took out a jade bottle and poured out the tablets inside onto her hand. Aren't those God Essence tablets? Ah, I know them. They are incredibly cheap. With just a single divine coin, you can buy 10 of them. They might look like God Essence tablets, but there's bound to be more to it. Curious, the crowd's attention swiftly focused on Zhong Xian once more. Standing at the center of the stage, Zhong Xian intentionally left a moment of silence for the crowd to talk among themselves and build up anticipation before introducing what it was. This tablet is known as the Spirit Channeling Tablet. It looks identical to a God Essence tablet, but its effects are much more than that. Not only does it heal one's expended energy, it also has the effect of gathering one's focus and revitalizing one's spirit, thus enhancing one's rate of cultivation. However, it's only effective on cultivators who are at the God realm or lower. As for the price, it's just 9.98 apiece, which is less than 10 divine coins. Chapter 2166 The Death of the Spirit God. If you wish to purchase any, you can head over to any of the Zhong Xian's pill stores around Royal City in 3 days. I have prepared 100 tablets, so whoever is interested in testing its effects can come onto the stage to test one for free. However, your cultivation mustn't be too high, preferably a low-tier god, Zhong Xian said. Hulala. As soon as he finished speaking, several hundred people immediately charged up, and they were all low-tier gods. Zhong Xian was not stingy. He had Qi Linger take out a few more bottles so that all of them could get a tablet. After consuming the spirit channeling tablet, the cultivators felt their focus sharpening more than ever before. 10 of them were even able to make use of this heightened condition to make a breakthrough to middle-tier god. With that, another wave of excitement swept across the crowd. Even the effects of the cheapest spirit channeling tablet had exceeded their imagination. It turned out to be an incredible medicine for making a breakthrough as well. Furthermore, the price was not even 10 divine coins. It was a sum that most cultivators could afford. In an instant, all 500,000 people in the crowd made sure to jot down the name Zhongxian's pills into their minds. Naturally, the image of the young man behind all these pills was also imprinted deeply in their heads. Looking at the thrilled crowd below, Zhongxian smiled in satisfaction. It seemed like the event was a huge success. Just as he was about to start concluding the event, his eyes suddenly widened slightly before glowing in excitement. The main reason he had chosen to push out these 3 pills was to receive more anima of yearning and raise his soul cultivation. He had thought that he would only be able to overcome the hurdle to high-tier celestial god realm that night, but who could have known that he would be able to make a breakthrough on the spot? He casually swallowed a high-tier god essence pills that he had in his storage ring, and 2 breaths later, his Junqi cultivation swiftly surged as well. High-tier celestial god realm, reached. Delighted with the results, Zhongxian gazed down at the crowd with a bright smile and said, "In the future, regardless of whether you need breakthrough pills, beauty pills, or spirit channeling tablets, you can get them at Zhongxian's pill." Since he had already achieved his aim, he threw the crowd back to Qi Linga to handle. Without any hesitation, he leaped onto the aerial celestial beast that he had arrived on and returned to his residence. Even though he had gone all out, he only did so because the situation necessitated it. On the inside, he was a humble and low-profile person. Since he had already achieved his goal, it was only natural for him to get out of the spotlight as soon as possible. Barely after Zhongxian returned to his room and took a seat, Sun Qiong suddenly came over and reported, "Young master, a person named Fu Jiangchen is at the entrance, and he has requested to meet you. Invite him in." Zhongxian got to his feet and walked to the main hall to meet his guest. He had been able to learn of Fu Jiangchen's identity from the discussions of the crowd earlier. Considering how the latter had helped him, it was only natural for him to welcome him warmly. Without his intervention, there was no way the breakthrough pill would have been able to win widespread recognition so quickly. "Apothecary Zhong." Fu Jiangchen greeted Zhongxian before settling on a seat. He began observing the young man in front of him curiously. The young man had concealed his cultivation well. While others might not be able to discern it clearly, he could tell that the young man was already a high-tier celestial god. Furthermore, the energy flowing through his body was truly terrifying. In terms of strength, the young man might be comparable to him, a god king, be it in terms of fighting prowess, ability as an apothecary, or business sense. There was no doubt that the young man sitting in front of him was an outstanding individual. "I'm honored by your visit, Apothecary Fu," Zhongxian said politely. "We are both apothecaries, so there's no need for you to be so polite with me. I have dropped by in hopes that we could share insights regarding pill forging with one another," Fu Jiangchen said. "I'm more than delighted to chat with you," Zhongxian replied with a smile. The art of pill forging was vast and profound. However, Zhongxian had already reached the peak of the field back when he was still on Master-Teacher continent. While pill forging in the firmament was slightly different from that of the Master-Teacher continent, the fundamental principles were mostly the same. As such, he was able to converse with Fu Jiangchen about pills without any difficulties. It did not take long for Fu Jiangchen to be colored impressed. There was a brief moment that he was deeply tempted to acknowledge the young man before him as his teacher. He had the reputation of the #1 apothecary in the firmament, but in truth, he knew that he was still far from the peak. He had the honor of meeting the Heaven Subjugation Monarch once, and the two of them had briefly chatted about their insights regarding pill forging. From that conversation, he had realized that the Heaven Subjugation Monarch was actually a true master in pill forging, such that it was no exaggeration to say that his skills were unrivaled. And right now, after having a deep discourse regarding the profoundness of pill forging, he realized that the young man before him did not pale in comparison to the Heaven Subjugation Monarch at all. To think that a young man in his 20s would actually possess skills rivaling those of the Heaven Subjugation Monarch. Just how in the world did he manage to acquire his capabilities? After chatting for a while, Fu Jiangchen awkwardly raised a request. "Apothecary Zhong, if you don't mind, Do you have some breakthrough pills here that you could sell to me? I'm willing to buy them at the original price. In truth, this was his main aim. Considering that only 100 breakthrough pills were being sold out there, it did not seem appropriate for a reputable apothecary like him to fight with the crowd over the breakthrough pill. With this consideration in mind, he had decided to pay a visit to Zhongxian personally, hoping that he could buy some from the person in question. Of course, his goal was not to use the breakthrough pills to raise his cultivation but to study them. That's no trouble at all. Zhongxian replied heartily. With a wave of his hand, he gestured for Sun Qiong to bring a jade bottle over. Fu Jiangchen uncorked the lid and saw 10 breakthrough pills inside. His face immediately reddened in agitation. He quickly took out a card and passed it over. Here, 150,000 divine coins. Ah, it's fine. There's no need for you to pay me. However, Apothecary Fu, do you have any pinnacle god essence pills with you? I would be really grateful if you could sell some of them to me, Zhongxian said. He could feel that the effectiveness of a high-tier god essence pill on him had reduced significantly, such that it was likely that he would need pinnacle god essence pills in order to push for a breakthrough to God King. The only problem was that pinnacle god essence pills were incredibly valuable and were effective even on conferred God Kings. Putting aside the exorbitant price tag on them, it was extremely difficult to source them. Considering that Fu Jiangchen was renowned as the #1 apothecary in the firmament, he should be able to forge the hard-to-acquire pinnacle god essence pills. If he could buy more from the other party, he would be spared a great deal of trouble in the future. As long as he could successfully raise his cultivation to the God King realm, he would have sufficient strength to squeeze into the top echelon of the firmament. Pinnacle god essence pills? Sure, I do have some. Fu Jiangchen was stunned for a moment before nodding in agreement. One could count on one's fingers the number of apothecaries in the firmament who were capable of forging pinnacle god essence pills, but he happened to be one of them. Not only so, he was ranked among the top few. With a flick of his wrist, he passed a jade bottle over as he said, "The pinnacle god essence pill is a very high-tier pill, and the medicinal herbs that are required for its forging are extremely difficult to source. Even I must spend a great deal of time and effort in order to forge one. Currently, I only have 3 pinnacle god essence pills in my possession. That's enough." Zhongxian could hardly hide his disappointment when he heard that Fu Jiangchen only had 3 of them, but he quickly concealed it with a smile. He accepted the jade bottle before beckoning Sun Qiong over. "Here, 2,900,000 divine coins. Please accept it." Sun Qiong humbly passed a card over to Fu Jiangchen. The price of god essence pills went up 100-fold for each difference in tier. A divine coin for a low-tier god essence pill, 100 divine coins for a middle-tier god essence pill, 10,000 divine coins for a high-tier god essence pill. Naturally, a pinnacle god essence pill was worth 1 million divine coins, and that was assuming that one had the connections to procure one. In comparison, the breakthrough pill that he was selling really was not expensive at all. Fu Jiangchen had Ju Feng accept the card before rising to his feet. He had already accomplished his business there, so it was time for him to bid farewell and leave. "Apothecary Fu, please hold on a moment," Zhongxian said as he stood up as well. Perplexed, Fu Jiangchen turned around and asked, "Do you need anything from me, Apothecary Zhong?" "I'm not really sure how to put it," Zhongxian said hesitantly as he quickly prepared his words. "Apothecary Fu, you are a God King expert, as well as a renowned apothecary. I believe that you must have visited many different places in the firmament and know many things. There's something that I would like to ask you about." He was hoping that the old man before him might happen to know something about Luo Ruoxin. An apothecary who was able to forge pinnacle god essence pills that conferred God Kings needed was bound to be respected and treated like a VIP no matter where he went. Given so, it was likely that he might know of secrets that others were unaware of. "Apothecary Zhong, feel free to ask me anything. I'll answer your question as long as it's something that I know of," Fu Jiangchen said with a smile. He had traveled around the firmament over the past thousands of years, and he prided himself as a person who was very knowledgeable about the affairs concerning the firmament. "I would like to inquire about the status of a person that I know. If I'm not mistaken, she should be a God King at the very least. Her name is Luo Ruoxin," Zhongxian said expectantly. Luo Ruoxin? Fu Jiangchen frowned slightly. I have heard of all of the god kings in the 9 skies, but I don't know anyone who goes by that name. There were only 100 or so god kings in the firmament, so it was not difficult to remember every single one of them. He was certain that none of them went by the name Luo Ruoxin. This, in turn, caused Zhongxian to frown. Was he mistaken? Was Luo Ruoxin not a god king? Was she actually a high-tier celestial god just like him? As for conferred god king and god monarch, to be honest, he dared not even think about that. Seeing the bewildered look on Zhongxian's face, Fu Jiangchen added, could you have made a mistake? If she's truly a god king, I would have heard of her. Do you remember anything else about her? Zhongxian pondered for a moment before adding, she has once told me that she's the spirit god. He had once guessed that Luo Ruoxin was just a pseudonym, and it seemed like he was right about that. Spirit god. Fu Jiangchen's eyes narrowed in disbelief upon hearing those words. He anxiously asked, are you certain about that? Did she tell you that personally, or did you hear it from someone else? Zhongxian was slightly taken aback by how Fu Jiangchen was reacting. He quickly replied, she told me that personally. He had asked Luo Ruoxin about her identity as the spirit god before, and she had also admitted it. In that sense, it was indeed true that she had told him about it personally. When did it happen? Fu Jiangchen pressed on. He seemed to be extremely agitated, such that his breathing had hastened a little. When did it happen? Zhongxian quickly calculated the timing in terms of the firmament's flow of time and replied, it was around a month ago. All in all, the time he had spent on the master-teacher continent and the Azure equated to barely more than a single day in terms of time on the firmament. A month ago? Chow. How is that possible? Fu Jiangchen widened his eyes in shock. His body was trembling, and his voice had become a little hoarse. What is wrong? Zhongxian asked carefully. He had not expected Fu Jiangchen to react in such a manner to his question. Fu Jiangchen's voice was trembling so much that even his disciples were staring at him in shock. It was very unlike his usual composed self. That's because 40 years ago, the spirit god passed away. Author's note. With this, we conclude our 16th arcade, the death of the spirit god, and usher in our next arc, the demise of a monarch. In this arc, Zhongxian finally settled into the firmament and became an existence second only to the god kings. His students also found their own places. In the next arc, we'll be drawing the curtains on the real arc shrouding the firmament. Kong Shi and Luo Ruoxin will finally appear in this arc and make their stands. At the same time, Zhongxian will become stronger and become a god king and beyond. Please look forward to it. Chapter 2167 The Titles of the 9 God Monarchs Wang. Zhongxian's head stalled for a moment before something clicked in his head. In a voice that was nearly shouting, he exclaimed, the spirit god died 40 years ago. How is that possible? Is the spirit god a hereditary title? The person I am looking for should be the newly appointed spirit god. Luo Ruoxin had only parted with him a month ago, so how could she have already been dead for 40 years? It could not possibly be that he was haunted by a ghost, right? If he was not mistaken, spirit god should be nothing more than a title. With the death of the previous spirit god, the successor would take their place. It should be the same as the title sovereign Chen Yong, where the title was passed down from generation to generation. Can such a thing be passed down? Fu Jiangchen's face was filled with skepticism. I don't think that the possibility is very likely. If such a thing happened, the entire firmament should have learned about it by now. There's no way we wouldn't have heard a thing till now. The entire firmament should have learned about it. Zhongxian was getting more and more confused by the moment. Is the spirit god a very prestigious title? Even if a conferred god king passed down their position to their successor, it would not go to the extent where the entire firmament knew about it. The spirit god is one of the 9 god monarchs. How could it not be a prestigious title? Fu Jiangchen replied with a bitter smile. Zhongxian immediately froze on the spot upon hearing those words. Wait a moment, Luo Ruoxin. No, The spirit god is one of the 9 god monarchs. He knew that his girlfriend was unlikely to be an ordinary person, but never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that she would actually be one of the 9 god monarchs, the strongest existence in the entire firmament. This was way too much for him to absorb quickly. Zhong Xian could not help but feel a little dreamy. If that was really true, it would explain why she had been unwilling to get together with him initially, as well as why she was so hesitant to reveal her identity. There was simply too huge a gap between the two of them. Given the mortal he was then, there was no way he would have been compatible with her. That's indeed the case. Fu Jiangchen nodded. Zhong Xian took a deep breath to calm himself down first before asking, "May I know which of the 9 skies the spirit god rules over?" He knew of the 9 skies, but he had a limited understanding of the 9 god monarchs. He wanted to know which of the 9 skies Luo Ruoxin ruled over so that he could head over to find her. "You don't know?" Fu Jiangchen was surprised by Zhong Xian's question. He stared at the young man for a moment, but it did not seem like the young man was joking with him. So, he shook his head and replied, "The spirit god is naturally the monarch of the sky of spirit origin." Sky of spirit origin? Zhong Xian was stunned as another name for the sky of spirit origin suddenly surfaced in his mind. "You are referring to the sky of deathlessness, right? Which means to say that the spirit god is the deathless monarch?" "Indeed." Fu Jiangchen nodded in response. This. Zhong Xian was utterly dumbfounded. The spirit god was actually the deathless monarch, but the deathless monarch was already dead. He even saw the latter's tombstone back at the Azure. Could it be that Ruoxin inherited the position of the previous deathless monarch, thus becoming the spirit god of the new generation? Zhong Xian swiftly came up with a plausible answer to this bizarre occurrence. This was the only explanation that he could think of that made sense of everything. "Well, I'm afraid that I don't really know about that." Fu Jiangchen replied awkwardly. A moment later, he added, "It's hard to say when it comes to the god monarchs. They aren't beings whom we can talk about casually, and it would be foolish to apply our common sense to them. No god monarch has ever passed away since the inception of the firmament, and this is the first time something like this has happened. So, be it the identity of the successor or whether there is even a successor in the first place, we don't really know much about it." Zhong Xian continued asking a few more questions, but it appeared that Fu Jiangchen did not know much about the spirit god of the sky of spirit origin. So, he decided not to ask about that anymore. "Then, do you know the god monarch for each of the 9 skies?" For some reason, the information regarding the 9 god monarchs was not detailed in any of the books at all. Most of what he had knew about the god monarchs had come from Mo Yun, the teacher that he met shortly after he arrived in the firmament. Since Fu Jiangchen appeared to be extremely knowledgeable about the firmament, it would be best to direct these questions to him. Those aren't secrets at all. Anyone who tries to look into it will be able to receive answers quickly, Fu Jiangchen said. "It appears that you know about the 9 skies, so I won't touch too much on them. As for the 9 god monarchs, the Cloud Dragon monarch rules over the eastern sky of Cloud Dragon. As a pure-blooded dragon, his an unparalleled existence in the world. Monarch Fumeng, known for his valiance and brawling abilities, governs the western sky of adamant gold. The sky of spirit origin, also known as the sky of deathlessness, is located at the south of the firmament, and its ruler is the deathless monarch, who is also addressed as the god of spirit origin or spirit god for short. Located directly opposite of that is the northern sky of Akron, also known as the Akron Ocean. It's a massive ocean that even god kings can easily lose their way in. Its ruler is the Akron monarch. The sky of blazing sun is located to the southeast of the firmament, and it is ruled by Monarch Shuoyang, who is also known as the blazing sun monarch. His presence itself casts an inferno over the lands, making him a deeply feared figure. To the northeast is the sky of heavenly sword, one of the most mysterious places in the firmament. It doesn't have much land, but there is no power that dares to trifle with it. There are rumors that the heavenly sword monarch possesses strength that triumphs over the other god monarchs, and only that person of the sky of freedom is able to curb him. The southwestern sky of Linglong is where I spend most of my time nowadays. Fairy Linglong is the only female monarch of the 9 god monarchs as far as I know. I have met her a few times, and she doesn't put on airs and is very down to earth. I respect her a lot. Northwest of the firmament where we are at now, the sky of drifting spectre. The monarch of the sky of drifting spectre is the Chenkuan demon monarch. You should be more familiar with this than me, so I'll just skip him. And at the very center of those 8 skies is the sky of freedom. The monarch of the sky of freedom is a huge mystery. I have never met them before, so I don't know who they are or what their gender is. In fact, I don't even know what their title is, and I dare not talk too carelessly about them either. All I know is that they possess unfathomable strength, such that the other 8 god monarchs appear to view them as their de facto leader. Fu Jiangchen swiftly went through the details of the 9 god monarchs to Zhongxian. Cloud Dragon Monarch, Monarch Fumeng, Monarch Shuoyang. Zhongxian committed the names of the 9 god monarchs to memory before nodding quietly. Given that Luo Ruoxin addressed herself as the spirit god, it was very likely that she was the successor of the deathless monarch. He would have headed down to the sky of spirit origin to verify this matter for himself. However, the problem was that the sky of spirit origin was located in the south of the firmament, whereas the sky of drifting spectre was in the northwest. He would probably have to use the teleportation formations. The distance was simply too far for him to traverse through normal means. If you have no other questions, I'll be leaving then. After talking about the 9 god monarchs, Fu Jiangchen filled Zhongxian in on a few other secrets that he could afford to talk about before bidding farewell. I am deeply grateful for your honest response to my questions, Apothecary Fu, Zhongxian said as he bowed deeply. Most people would avoid talking about the 9 god monarchs for fear that they would draw trouble to themselves. It could be said that Fu Jiangchen had really done him a great favor. Apothecary Zhong, you are too courteous. As someone who is able to become high-tier celestial god and come up with the breakthrough pill and beauty pill at such a young age, I believe that it's only a matter of time before you become a god king. Even if I chose not to speak today, it would only be a matter of time before you learned about these things yourself. So, you need not feel too burdened by this. Fu Jiangchen chuckled softly. He would not have spoken about the 9 god monarchs under normal circumstances, but he saw great potential in the young man before him. In terms of strength, potential, and skills in pill forging, the young man did not pale much in comparison to him. It was very likely that the young man would become his peer or surpass him even in the near future. Since that was the case, it would be better to do him a favor now. Chapter 2168 Great Displacement Teleportation Formation. Zhongxian did not rush into action after Fu Jiangchen left. Instead, he fell into deep thought. There were 2 paths right before him at this very moment. First, he could head to the sky of spirit origin to find Luo Ruoxin and tell her that he was in the firmament and that his cultivation had already reached high-tier celestial god. Even though he was still a long way off from becoming a god monarch, as long as he persevered, with the cheat code known as the Library of Heaven's Path, he was confident that he could narrow the gap between the 2 of them. Second, he could stay there and continue selling his breakthrough pills and beauty pills. Through this, he could expand his influence and gather more anima of yearning. In the future, he could push for a breakthrough to God King, conferred God King, and possibly, just like Kongsha, reach God Monarch too. He could only become worthy of Luo Ruoxin by reaching the same place where she was. Otherwise, with his current cultivation realm, even if he found Luo Ruoxin, they still would not be able to make their relationship public. But there was a problem with that. After the huge event that was just held, it doesn't seem likely that I can spread my name any further anytime soon. The anima of yearning that he received ever since he announced the release of the 3 pills had been increasing non-stop, but the rate of increase was slowly decreasing. Furthermore, after his cultivation reached high-tier celestial god realm, the amount of soul energy that he needed to make a breakthrough became much higher. At the very least, it would take a month or 2 before he was ready to attempt a breakthrough to become a god king. Furthermore, he had not found any inspiration for his advancement to the god king realm yet. All of this meant that it was unlikely for him to make a breakthrough anytime soon. If it was already that difficult for him to become a god king, did that not mean that it would at least take him several years before he could become a god monarch? That was too slow. Zhongxian sighed once more. It was one thing when he did not know where Luo Ruoxin was, but now that he knew where he could find her, there was no way he could hold himself back. Forget it, I'll head to the sky of spirit origin first. I'll decide what to do next after meeting her. Zhongxian solemnly made up his mind. He had no idea why the old deathless monarch had passed away, but if Luo Ruoxin had taken over his position, it was unlikely that she would be in a comfortable position at the moment. Her strength likely paled in comparison to the rest of the god monarchs, and that would mean that she was in a precarious situation. If she was facing any difficulties, it was only right for him to stand by her side and face them together. Having made up his mind, Zhongxian stood up and began walking out of the main hall. However, Qi Ling'er suddenly walked in at this moment. Young Master Zhong, the 100 breakthrough pills and 3,000 beauty pills have been sold. As for the spirit channeling tablets, we're still waiting for Zhongxian's pills to officially open for business in 3 days before putting them on sale. As the spirit channeling tablets were aimed at normal cultivators, it was best to let the anticipation ripen a bit before selling them. Otherwise, if everyone got their hands on them right away, the sense of accomplishment upon obtaining one would be greatly reduced. That would reduce the amount of anima of yearning that he received considerably. You have done well. Zhongxian nodded. I am planning to head over to the sky of spirit origin to handle some matters. I'll be counting on you and Sun Qiong to handle the business. With these two sharp-witted businessmen holding the fort, there was nothing he needed to worry about. His time would be much better spent on trying to find Luo Ruoxin. You are heading to the sky of spirit origin? Qi Ling'er was taken aback. Young master, how are you planning on heading there? Given the distance, even if you fly there on an aerial celestial beast, it'll take you several years at the very minimum. The sky of drifting spectre was located in the northeast, whereas the sky of spirit origin was situated in the south. Given how large the firmament was, the distance between these two places was frighteningly great. Aren't there teleportation formations that connecting the sky of drifting spectre to the sky of spirit origin? Zhongxian asked. Qi Ling'er was the one who had suggested that they use the teleportation formation to reach Royal City from Twilight City. Why would she suddenly ask such an obvious question? That teleportation formation, also known as the minor displacement teleportation formation, only allows you to teleport within the boundaries of the sky of drifting spectre. If you wish to transcend boundaries and teleport straight to the sky of spirit origin, you'll need the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation. However, it won't be easy to use it, Qi Ling'er explained. Great Displacement Teleportation Formation? This time, Zhongxian was the one who was confused. Qi Ling'er shook her head helplessly at Zhongxian's incomprehension. It was really amazing how the young man was so knowledgeable about all sorts of stuff, only to be utterly ignorant about some of the most basic things. The 9 skies 9 monarchs are basically 9 different countries. Each country has its own borders, so there's no way outsiders would be allowed to cross the borders easily, not to mention using teleportation formations. If it was that easy to move from one sky to the other, the major powers would have to constantly guard against one another, and chaos would ensue as soon as any power displayed the slightest hint of weakness. Qi Ling'er explained. It would not pose a problem if a cultivator wanted to move within the boundaries of the country that they belonged to, but of course, that could not be allowed when it came to other countries. If each of the skies allowed outsiders to freely teleport into their own land, that would be pretty much giving them the ability to launch an invasion as and when they like. I see. What's the criteria required in order to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation? Zhongxian asked. As far as I know, there are 3 ways in which you can use that formation, Qi Ling'er replied. First, if you become a God King or get into the top 30 of the board of potential God Kings and are highly skilled in a non-combat occupation, similar to Master Fu Jiangchen, you will be able to use the teleportation formations to travel around the firmament without any restriction. Alternatively, you could become an envoy of the sky of drifting spectre. However, the minimum rank requirement for becoming an envoy is to be a golden armored general in the military. Furthermore, you must accumulate sufficient contribution and receive a mandate straight from the Chenkuan demon monarch. Last but not least, you can also receive a special permit from the Sky of Freedom. The Sky of Freedom is viewed to be the de facto leader of the 9 skies, so their special permit will allow you to freely use the teleportation formations around the firmament. However, the criteria for receiving the special permit are the same as the first option. You must be a God King or get into the top 30 of the board of potential God Kings. Otherwise, you'll be crushed by the distortion in spatial laws when attempting to travel through the Great Displacement teleportation formation. No matter which way it is, you'll need to have the cultivation of a high-tier celestial god at the very minimum. However, young Master Zhong's current cultivation is. Feeling that she had gotten the point across, Qi Linge stopped her words right there. She had seen how the young man's cultivation rose from low-tier god to middle-tier celestial god within the span of a few days. There was no way she would not have been triggered after seeing something like this. So, she had begun to focus her effort on cultivating as well. Fortunately, with the rise in her standing in the Qi clan, she was provided with everything she needed in her cultivation. But even with ample resources and unyielding diligence, she had only managed to reinforce her low-tier celestial god realm cultivation over the past week. It would still be a long time before she could make a breakthrough to middle-tier celestial god realm. Since this was the case for her, surely it would be the same for the young man. The advancement in every single cultivation stage for a celestial god was many times harder than that of a god. Given so, there was no way Zhongxian would be able to withstand the pressure on his body from going through the Great Displacement teleportation formation. The minor displacement teleportation formation was so frightening that one would require the protection of the City Lord token, so the major displacement teleportation formation was bound to be even more fearsome. It was not a facility that anyone could use easily. Are you worrying about my cultivation? You don't need to. My cultivation has already reached high-tier celestial god. As Zhongxian spoke, he revealed his cultivation to Qi Linge. As a humble and low-profile person, there was no way he would brag about his breakthrough to others for no reason. A god king might still be able to see through his cultivation, but it was perfectly normal that a low-tier celestial god could not do so. The great pressure coming from Zhongxian made Qi Linge unwittingly take a step back. Her eyes widened in shock as her mouth fell agape. Trembling non-stop, she slowly raised her right hand to clutch her chest so as to soothe her twitching heart. This was too much. It had only been 10 or so days since they first met, but the young man had managed to raise his cultivation from a low-tier god all the way to a high-tier celestial god, becoming a figure far beyond her reach. Was it even possible for a human to cultivate that quickly? It was at this moment that Qi Linge swore to the heavens that she would avoid talking about cultivation or the like before Zhongxian. Otherwise, she felt like her heart might really cave in one of these days. Chapter 2169 High-Tier Celestial God Realm Pinnacle. What? Is my strength still lacking at the moment? Do I have to reach high-tier celestial god for it to work? Seeing how Qi Linge had gone silent all of a sudden, Zhongxian could not help but frown. Qi Linge took a deep breath and suppressed her stifled feeling before finally speaking up. Those who are able to get into the top 30 of the board of potential god kings are all at high-tier celestial god realm pinnacle. That's the minimum requirement for them to differentiate themselves from other high-tier celestial gods. Even though Zhongxian had managed to advance his cultivation to high-tier celestial god, there was still a huge gap before he could reach the top of the cultivation stage. The step after high-tier celestial god was God King. Even though it was just a single cultivation stage, the amount of energy that was required to make this breakthrough was massive, such that there were cultivators who had reinforced their foundation for hundreds of years, only to fail to make the breakthrough time and time again. For this reason, the gap among high-tier celestial gods could be surprisingly huge. A person who had just become a high-tier celestial god was bound to be drastically different from one who had reached that level centuries prior. Even with Zhongxian's potential, he would have to cultivate for at least a year in order to climb his way to the top. Even with Qi Yu's talent and the huge amount of resources the Qi clan had invested in him, he had still taken almost 10 years to raise his cultivation from high-tier celestial god realm primary stage to pinnacle. Is that so? Hearing that he had to raise his cultivation to high-tier celestial god realm pinnacle at the very minimum, Zhongxian clearly hesitated for a moment. Then, with a deep sigh, he murmured, "I guess I have no choice but to use that then." With a flick of his wrist, he took out a pill. It was one of the God Essence pills that he had bought from Fu Jiangchen just a moment ago. Ordinary high-tier God Essence pills were no longer as effective on him. So, he had to rely on this in order to raise his cultivation to higher realms. Without any hesitation, he popped the pinnacle God Essence pill into his mouth. "Young Master Zhong, you are." Seeing how Zhong Xian abruptly popped a pill into his mouth after hearing her words, Qi Ling'e was a little dumbfounded. "What in the world are you up to? You can't be trying to make a breakthrough now, can you? Don't you need to condition yourself and prepare? It can't be that you are able to raise your cultivation just by stuffing yourself with medicine, right?" Qi Ling'e was just about to pose her doubts when she saw the young man suddenly closing his eyes. 2 seconds later, he opened his eyes once more and said, "All right, I'm done. I am at high-tier celestial god realm pinnacle now." Boom. Following his words, an indomitable aura flowed out of his body. The pressure that was coming from him felt so powerful that she felt as if she was going to be crushed to bits. This. Qi Ling'e was really flabbergasted. "I only said 5 words after you swallowed the God Essence pill, but within that short period, you were actually able to achieve what took Qi Yu 10 years to accomplish." Feeling more stifled than ever, Qi Ling'e clutched her chest and rubbed it to soothe the congested feeling within. It was a good thing that Qi Yu was not there, or else he would have been traumatized out of his wit. It sure was darned frustrating to see someone pulling off something that took others years to achieve so easily. The heck, was it really fine for the creator to unleash a monster like that upon the world? It was unfair. How is it? Am I strong enough now? If this isn't enough yet, I can wait a little longer till my soul cultivation rises to high-tier celestial god realm pinnacle too, Zhong Xian said. His physical body and zhenqi cultivation had already reached high-tier celestial god realm pinnacle, but his soul cultivation was not at that level yet. He still needed to accumulate some more anima of yearning in order to pull that off. There's no need for that. Fearing that the young man would really pull something off that would allow his soul cultivation to grow on the spot, Qi Ling'e quickly turned him down. She closed her eyes for a moment to adjust her emotions before speaking. "Young Master Zhong, you are already strong enough. It's just that the 3 ways which I have listed out aren't easy to accomplish. Putting aside the ones that require you to become a god king or reach the top of an occupation, even becoming a golden-armored general of the sky of drifting specters isn't easy. And when it comes to the elusive sky of freedom, receiving a special permit is as difficult as trying to scale the heavens." "You're right." Zhong Xian nodded in agreement. The 3 ways that Qi Ling'e had stated were indeed not easy at all. If that was the case, should he spend another month or 2 there to reinforce his cultivation and become a god king first? But that would take way too much time. It was his last option at the moment. Was there a way for him to make a breakthrough that night or within the next 2 days? That did not seem too likely either, especially since he did not have a clue which direction he should develop the pathos of heaven in. Furthermore, he knew that the hurdle to overcome to become a god king was not low at all. He would surely face plenty of trouble doing so. "You mentioned earlier that those who have reached the top of their occupation and are within the top 30 of the board of potential god kings can use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation. What occupations are considered under this?" Zhong Xian asked. "Apothecaries, physicians, blacksmiths, master teachers. These are the 4 main ones, I think," Qi Ling'e said. "They are not centered around fighting, and they can contribute greatly to the cultivators around them. Most powers are eager to poach talents in those fields. The fact that you are able to create the breakthrough pill goes to show that your proficiency in pill forging is extraordinary. If you could just take the exam and be officially recognized as a member of the occupation, you would be given the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation. How does the exam work?" The exam for Drifting Spectre Royal City's Apothecary Guild requires its examinees to forge a pill on the spot. As long as a cultivator is able to forge a high-tier God Essence pill, they will have cleared the examination, Qi Ling'e replied. "High-tier God Essence pill?" Zhong Xian was rendered speechless. While he was the man who had created the extraordinary breakthrough pill and beauty pill, his true skills in pill forging were disastrous. Putting aside a high-tier God Essence pill, It was a huge question whether he could forge even a low-tier god essence pill at all. He would be immediately exposed as a fraud if he attempted to forge a pill before another apothecary. As for smithing, it seemed like he was not capable of forging anything other than bricks. So, after much thought, the only viable option left for him was to focus on the path of a master teacher or a physician. If I were to seek the path of a physician, how high must my mastery be in order to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation? Also, how does the examination work? Zhong Xian asked. If he walked the path of a master teacher, he would inevitably get tied up together with Kongsha. At least till he was sufficiently strong to stand his ground, he did not wish to catch Kongsha's eye. The affairs of the Azure had taught him to be wary. Physician? Qi Linger frowned contemplatively. I'm afraid that I don't really know. I'll have to head to the Physician Guild to ask them about it. Aren't you an apothecary? Why are you taking the physician examination instead? Or are you telling me that you are skilled in medicine as well? Let's head there together. Zhong Xian said it was just a matter of time before he took the examination anyway, so he might as well make his way there and clear it as soon as possible. It would save him some time. All right. Qi Linger nodded. There were organizations representing all sorts of occupations in the firmament. It was just that they were not as influential as they were on the master-teacher continent. In the firmament, what people valued most was still strength. As long as one displayed sufficient strength, all sorts of talented people would congregate around one. For this reason, while apothecaries, physicians, and blacksmiths were viewed in high regard by others, their standing was not as high as on the master-teacher continent. The master teachers in the firmament aren't as organized and disciplined as those on the master teacher continent either. Zhong Xian sighed deeply as he recalled Fan Zhe's doing. On the master teacher continent, the expectations of a master teacher were very extreme. Not only did they have to be knowledgeable about cultivation, they had to be skilled in multiple occupations as well. Every 9-star master teacher would have to be a master in 9 different occupations. As for the firmament, it seemed like master teachers just had to be decently good at teaching, and it did not seem like there were strict rules on their ethics. Perhaps Kongsha was in a rush to initiate the system of master teachers all over the world so as to obtain more anima of yearning. He did not have the luxury of time to take a step at a time to develop the occupation properly. Given how quickly he had risen through the ranks, challenging the 9 god monarchs one after another, if he had really taken his time, the Master Teacher Pavilion would have been crushed by other powers in the initial phase of its establishment. Chapter 2170 Physician Tournament. Zhong Xian's residence was quite far away from the Physician Guild. Even while riding on an aerial celestial beast, they took more than an hour before they arrived at their destination. Just like the Master Teacher Pavilion, the building of the Physician Guild did not look particularly grand. If Zhong Xian had to describe it, it seemed like a private medical clinic instead. The Physician Guild was filled with people. Most of them were dressed in robes, and they had anxious looks on their faces. Physician Wang Qing, Physician Yu Quan, Physician Shen Zimu. Looking at the crowd in the hall, Qi Linger swiftly recognized them and frowned in bewilderment. Are they very famous? Zhong Xian asked. They are the most formidable physicians in the drifting spectre royal city. Usually, most of them are so busy that they wouldn't meet one another even though all of them live in royal city. It's weird how all of them are gathered together in the Physician Guild today, Qi Linger replied. Physician Wang Qing was the principal physician of their Qi clan, and the health problems faced by the upper echelons of the Qi clan were all entrusted to him. Similarly, Physician Yu Quan was the principal physician of the Beitang clan, and Physician Shen Zimu was the principal physician of the Shuntu clan. While the 3 clans appeared to be peaceful on the surface, there was a great deal of rivalry happening in the shadows. As such, even during the usual meetings held by the Physician Guild, those 3 physicians tried to avoid one another as much as possible. It was bizarre to see the 3 of them appearing together in one place. We just have to ask someone to find out what's going on, Zhong Xian said with a smile. He stopped a young physician that was passing by and handed him 10 divine coins. May I know what's going on here at the moment? The young physician accepted the money and replied, It's the physician tournament. Physician tournament? Zhongxian frowned doubtfully. He had heard of people competing in their proficiency in pill forging and smithing, but was it possible for people to compete with their abilities to cure a patient? The apothecary that was able to best extract the medicinal energy from the medicinal herbs and maximize the potency of the forged pill would be the most skilled of all. The blacksmith who was able to create the most resilient and sharpest weapon would be the most proficient of all. But how were physicians supposed to compete with their skills? The way of medicine was vast and broad, and each physician had their own specialty. Furthermore, was it safe for them to test out their cures on their patients to see which was more efficient? A life was at stake. That would be making light of their patients. I guess it's normal that you outsiders wouldn't know about it. The evaluation method of the physician tournament is not perfect, but it's the most direct way to gauge a physician's skills. It is basically a simulation of the treatment process, where the physicians will diagnose the patient and treat him. Based on a set of assessment criteria, we will be able to determine which physician is more skilled, the young physician explained. The physician tournament was currently the most official way used to set skilled physicians apart from the weaker ones. It was not every day that a difficult patient would come by, so the chances that physicians had to prove themselves were extremely limited. As such, most physicians joined the physician tournament in order to prove their skills. As long as one was able to emerge victorious in the tournament, everyone would recognize one's skills. But to simulate the whole treatment process, you need to have patience, right? It can't be that the physician guild is keeping a stockpile of patients with difficult symptoms just to conduct the physician tournament, can it? He agreed that a simulation of the treatment process was the best way to evaluate a physician's skills. However, without patients to treat, any simulation would be meaningless. And if they really prepared patients beforehand just to hold this tournament, that would really besmirch the reputation of the physician guild. As people who held power over the lives of their patients, it would be unacceptable for them to take life lightly. Of course not. Depending on the nature of the physician tournament, there are some tournaments that require live patients, and there are some that don't need patients. After all, it would be highly ineffective if a physician tournament could only be held when there are certain patients, the young physician replied. Time was of the utmost importance in most medical treatments. By the time all the participating physicians were present, the patient would likely have died or become untreatable by then. Therefore, changes had to be made to the format of the physician tournament accordingly. Zhongxian was just about to ask how the physician tournament would work when a commotion suddenly broke out within the room. A middle-aged man walked up onto the stage in front with widened strides. That is the leader of the physician guild, Sun Xian, Qi Ling whispered to Zhongxian. Zhongxian glanced over to take a closer look. The guild leader had the appearance of a 40-year-old middle-aged man, and his presence felt firm and reliable. His cultivation had also reached high-tier celestial god. Everyone, the Sky of Cloud Dragon has challenged our Sky of Drifting Spectre to a battle of medicine. They demand that we recognize their superiority and dispatch the top 10 physicians of our physician guild to work for free in the Sky of Cloud Dragon for 100 years if we lose. As you all should know, I don't like to get involved in unnecessary trouble, but this is intolerable. I can't accept this humiliation. What do the rest of you say? Guild leader Sun Xian declared furiously. We won't tolerate such humiliation either. That bunch from the Sky of Cloud Dragon are only good for their bloodline. What medicine can they possibly know? What gives them to guts to challenge us to a battle? They want us to serve them for 100 years. If we don't teach them a lesson, we'll become the laughingstock of the world. Burning fury could be felt in the atmosphere as everyone's complexion turned ugly. Since that's the case, let's accept their challenge and pound them to the ground. The honor of the Sky of Drifting Spectre is at stake. We can't afford to lose this fight. Sun Xian declared imposingly. Right now, I shall declare the names of those who are going to face the physicians of the Sky of Cloud Dragon. There are 5 candidates in total, and they are the most esteemed physicians of our Sky of Drifting Spectres. Speak up if you have any disagreements, but make sure that you have the capability to back up your word. The crowd nodded in agreement. Similar to how there was no concept of first when it came to literature, it was hard to determine the best physician. Nevertheless, everyone still had some gauge as to who was more skilled out of those around them. As someone who has been elected to become the leader of the Physician Guild, it would be a huge disgrace if I remained unmoved when our Physician Guild has been insulted by an outsider. So, I'll be volunteering myself as one of the candidates who will be facing the sky of Cloud Dragon. Are there anyone who has any objections? Sun Xian asked. We have no problem with guild leader Sun facing the challenge from the sky of Cloud Dragon, the crowd replied resoundingly. Moving on, Wang Qing, Yu Quan, and Shenzimu are the physicians serving the three great clans of Royal City, responsible for treating the ailments of their conferred god kings. There's no doubt that their medical skills are exceptional. So, I'll be nominating them as our candidates too, Sun Xian announced. The crowd nodded in agreement. The fact that those three were chosen as the principal physicians of the three great clans was testimony to their skills. Given so, they were qualified to represent the sky of drifting specters in the battle ahead. After confirming the four candidates, Sun Xian looked at the crowd and said, As for the last candidate, I don't have anyone particular in mind, so I would like to leave the choice to the rest of you. Is there anyone who has a candidate in mind that can represent us? I would like to nominate physician Chen Chao as our representative. 8 years ago, when the chaos pandemic struck, he was the one who came up with a cost-effective cure that could be pushed out to the masses, thus saving thousands of experts from the clutches of death. In terms of accomplishment and skills, he would be more worthy than any of us. I'll nominate physician Zhao Chong. Everyone here has seen with their own eyes what he has done for our physician guild over the years. He has solved all sorts of difficult illnesses with ease, and over the past 10 years, he has saved at least several hundred lives. The populace in Drifting Spectre Royal City all address him as the Divine Doctor. I believe that he is the most appropriate candidate to represent us in the battle against the sky of Cloud Dragon. But in terms of experience, physician Qian Hai is the most appropriate. His reputation might not be as resounding compared to the others, but he has worked in this field for many years now. In terms of reliability, I don't think that there's anyone in the Physician Guild who can compare with him. In just a few moments, the crowd had already nominated 8 other potential candidates. Most of them were well-known, respected figures in Drifting Spectre Royal City. The discussion among the crowd grew more and more fervent as they argued with one another over why the candidate that they had nominated was the most suitable to represent them. Meanwhile, Zhongxian turned to Qi Linger and asked, Do the 5 chosen candidates have the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation? He had gone in hopes of receiving the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation, but looking at the current circumstances, there was probably no one who was in the mood to test him. Since that was the case, it might be better if he competed for the final slot instead. As far as I know, Wang Qing, Yu Quan, and Shenzimu don't have the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation. Of all physicians in the sky of drifting specters, only guild leader Sun Xian has the right to use it. If you wish to prove yourself worthy, on top of being chosen as one of the 5 candidates, you'll probably have to defeat the opponents from the sky of Cloud Dragon and achieve victory in the physician tournament as well, Qi Linger said. What? The requirement to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation is so strict. Zhongxian was slightly taken aback. If that's the case, doesn't it mean that the 9 skies don't really have much interaction with one another? If only the person at the top of each occupation could use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation, the number of people who could use that facility would really be pathetically low. If it was that difficult for each sky to access one another, how did they do business with one another? Did they even do business with one another? Were they actually isolated entities who barely interacted with one another, like a puddle of dead water? You're thinking too much. Qi Linger shook her head. What you are competing for is the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation, not the right to enter the other skies. The boundaries to the other skies are practically open, so you can enter and leave freely. Given the long lifespan of cultivators, most people can afford to spend a few years traveling to get to the other skies, so they simply travel on aerial divine beasts or celestial beast. This is really a huge pain to deal with. Zhongxian struck his head helplessly. Qi Linger was right. The right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation formation should be viewed as a privilege. This privilege allowed one to teleport right into the heart of another sky in an instant, which could be terribly dangerous if someone used it for malicious purposes. As such, there was a need to restrict this privilege. In this world where normal cultivators usually needed weeks to travel from one city to another, it was perfectly normal for them to spend years traveling to another sky. For ordinary gods, spending years traveling felt like a huge luxury due to their short lifespan, but it was a different case for celestial gods, who could easily live up to 1,000 years. They could easily spend months in isolation anyway, so it was not a big deal for them to spend years traveling from one sky to the other. While Zhongxian was still communicating with Qi Ling'e, Sun Xian finally interjected into the commotion. Since we aren't able to come to an agreement, why don't we have these physicians compete with one another? Whoever proves to be the most competent of all will represent our sky of drifting specters in the battle. Sounds fine. The crowd nodded in agreement. Everyone had their own opinions on who was the most suitable candidate, so naturally, they would not come to a conclusion even if they continued arguing with one another. Since that was the case, it would be best if they could hold a selection to decide it. This way, everyone would be more willing to accept the final verdict. Since that's the case, let's invite the physicians who have been nominated onto the stage, Sun Xian said. It did not take long for the nominated physicians to gather on the stage. All in all, there were 8 of them. They were all the most outstanding physicians in Drifting Spectre Royal City, and each of them had made significant contributions to the world. Sun Xian looked around the crowd and asked, "Is there anyone else who wishes to join the selection as well? As long as you are able to emerge victorious, you will be given the opportunity to represent the sky of Drifting Spectre against the sky of Cloud Dragon." Hearing those words, Qi Ling'e turned to Zhongxian and asked, "Young Master Zhong, are you planning on joining in the selection as well?" To be honest, she had no idea how proficient in medicine the latter was. However, knowing that the young man before her possessed the bloodline of a god monarch, she did not dare underestimate his abilities. So, she decided to ask his opinion on it instead. Chapter 2171 Unqualified. Of course, I am participating in the competition as well, Zhongxian replied with a smile. His main purpose there was to win the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation formation. He could not allow the opportunity right before his eyes to slip through his fingers just like that. All right then. Hearing that response, Qi Ling'e stepped forward and declared, "Our young master intends to participate in the selection as well." Her voice was resounding and authoritative, and it immediately drew gazes onto her. "Lady Ling'e, you." On the stage, physician Wang Qing looked at her doubtfully. As the principal physician of the Qi clan, he was well aware of the shuffling of power that had happened in the Qi clan recently. He had also met Qi Ling'e several times, and he knew just how highly regarded she was at the moment. So, who could the young master that she spoke of possibly be? Could she be referring to the few more famous geniuses of the Qi clan? But he had watched the younger generations of the Qi clan as they grew up, and he did not know any of them to be proficient in medicine, so, he could not help but be a bit baffled by the current situation. He looked around the room, but there did not seem to be anyone else from the Qi clan around. "May I know who the young master you speak of refers to?" Physician Wang Qing asked. "It's none other than young master Zhongxian," Qi Ling'e replied. "Zhongxian? Could she be referring to the person who created the breakthrough pill? Wait, that young man beside her is Zhongxian, right? I was there for the event, so I'm pretty sure he looks like that." "You're right. That young man is indeed Zhongxian, but isn't he an apothecary? Why would he suddenly come here to participate in our selection?" Though physicians and apothecaries deal with medicinal herbs, they are two completely different occupations. But if you think about it, the breakthrough pill and beauty pill have the ability to heal internal trauma. He might be knowledgeable about the way of medicine too. Due to the widespread fame of the beauty pill and breakthrough pill, there was nearly no one in Royal City who had not heard of Zhongxian anymore. Of course, this included the Physician Guild. They were full of respect toward the young man who managed to create such a miraculous pill, but as an apothecary, Why would he be participating in the Physician Guild's selection event instead of the Apothecary Guild's? Are you a physician? Sun Xian asked with a frown. Zhong Xian nodded in response. I have read quite a few books relating to the way of medicine and treated a few patients. Do you have a physician qualification? Sun Xian asked. I haven't had chance to take the examination yet, Zhong Xian replied. He was a 9-star physician back at the Master Teacher Pavilion, but of course, such an identity would not be recognized in the firmament. Young Master Zhong, I am in awe of your abilities as an apothecary, but I feel like you might be looking down on our physician guild. How can someone who doesn't even have a physician license represent us? Are you mocking our physician guild for being inept, such that we need an apothecary to face our battles for us? Sun Xian swung his hand backward in displeasure. Guild leader Sun, that's not my intention, Zhong Xian replied with a frown. I know that my words lack credibility as I don't have a physician license at the moment, but I am confident in my skills as a physician. If that's the issue, I am fine with taking the examination for the license right now. I believe that it won't take too long for me. You want to take the examination right now? I know that I might sound a little harsh when I say this, but do you think that I'll trust someone who has just obtained the physician license to represent our physician guild? Sun Xian's face was livid. Most of our physicians here have been in practice for decades now, and from their record thus far, we know that we can trust in their skills. They are prepared for this fight. Even if you are skilled in the way of medicine as you claim, I'm afraid that I can't allow you to participate on the spur of a moment. Please try again next time. Apothecary Zhong, we respect you for bringing the beauty pill and the breakthrough pill to this world, but being a physician is very different from being an apothecary. The knowledge between the two occupations isn't fully transferable. If you make a mistake in forging a pill, you can still try again with a new set of medicinal herbs. However, if you make a mistake with a patient, that's a life potentially lost. You can't simply hit the reset button and try again. We appreciate your eagerness in helping us defeat those from the sky of Cloud Dragon, but you aren't the person we are looking for. Just concentrate on your pill forging, alright? Don't come to our physician guild to cause a mess. Physician Wang Qing and a few others also stepped forward to dissuade Zhong Xian from his decision. Zhong Xian was at a loss for words. What guild leader Sun Xian said made perfect sense. This battle concerned the reputation of the Sky of Drifting Spectres. Even if he cleared the physician examination and proved his capabilities, it would still be hard for him to build up credence among the other physicians. The other physicians had a huge track record behind them, whereas he had nearly nothing. From their perspective, they would be taking a huge risk by nominating him. Pardon me for interrupting you. I'll take my leave. Zhong Xian shook his head and walked out. Qi Ling was left dumbfounded for a moment before she quickly left the physician guild as well to catch up with Zhong Xian. With an incredulous voice, she asked, Young Master Zhong, do you really not have a physician license? It was ridiculous that he would go all the way to the Physician Guild in hopes of earning the rights to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation when he did not even have a physician license. Just how much confidence did he have in himself to attempt something like that? Zhong Xian shook his head in response. Qi Ling closed her eyes and exhaled deeply before asking, What do you intend to do now? Physicians were not like any other occupation, they dealt with lives. Even if he wanted to participate in the physician tournament, it was doubtful if the patient would allow someone who did not have a physician license to treat him. With these considerations in mind, he decided that it was impossible for him to get permission to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation from the Physician Guild, which was also why he had left without saying too much. Let's put that aside for the time being. You mentioned that on top of reaching the top of an occupation, I must get into the top 30 on the board of potential god kings, right? Given the current circumstances surrounding the Physician Guild, it was likely that he would be disallowed from attending the physician tournament. As a humble, low-profile person, he would not do something as atrocious as challenging an entire guild. Of course, if he had done anything similar to that in the past, it was due to the folly of his youth. He was a different man now. Anyway, he had no intention of making the Physician Guild his enemy. Since that was the case, He might as well focus on the other requirement first. Yes. Each of the 9 skies has its individual board of potential god kings. You just have to get into the top 30 for one of them, Qi Linger explained. The procedures for getting onto the board aren't too complicated. You just have to find someone within the top 30, challenge them to a battle, and defeat them in an open battle. Of course, the rules of the duel have to be supervised by the overseers of the board, the Free Knights of the Sky of Freedom. The Free Knights. That's right. The boards of potential god kings of the 9 skies are moderated by the Free Knights of the Sky of Freedom. The Free Knights is a group made up entirely of god kings, and their eye of discernment far surpasses that of ordinary god kings. It's said that they are able to accurately gauge a person's ranking on the board through the strength they display in a duel. Zhong Xian nodded in response. Was that not the same as the Guinness World Records in his previous world? The key to becoming a record holder was not about one's capabilities but the extent to which one was able to display one's capabilities before the judge. In any case, it was unlikely for anyone to object to the fairness of the board of potential god kings when it was moderated by a neutral group of god kings. Where can I find the Free Knights? Are they around Drifting Spectre Royal City? Zhong Xian asked. It would really be a load of trouble if he had to go all the way to the Sky of Freedom just to get his strength assessed. They should be in the Netherworld Palace right now. Qi Yu is currently getting tested by them, Qi Linger said. Is that so? Let's head over to take a look then, Zhong Xian said. Young Master Zhong, which rank are you aiming for? Shall I compile the information of the current top 30 rankers for you? Seeing how quickly Zhong Xian had come to a decision, Qi Linger felt a little speechless. He always acted in such a manner, diving into all sorts of things without the slightest hint of worry or anxiety. With how lightly he was taking everything, she could not help but feel worried on his behalf. The opponent that you are going to face isn't going to be any ordinary cultivator. Those who are able to get into the board of potential god kings are geniuses who have undergone hundreds of battles. If they could be defeated easily, they would have already dropped out of the list by now. To dash over there without the slightest preparation. That's just blind recklessness. It's fine. It would be too troublesome to gather information on them. Let's just find a free knight and have him send a challenge letter to those who are in the vicinity. I'll just fight with the person who is closest to us, Zhong Xian replied. It did not matter to him who his opponent was. While he did not have a clear gauge of his current fighting prowess, he was confident of defeating any celestial gods with his current strength. His physical body, after being tempered by the lucid lunar lake, had become resilient enough to withstand any attack from a high-tier celestial god, and his pathos of heaven was far superior to any other cultivation technique in the firmament. There was no way he would be defeated by any other high-tier celestial god. Admittedly, his soul cultivation was a little weaker at the moment, but that would not pose much of a problem. You are going to challenge everyone in the vicinity? Qi Linger's lips twitched. As expected of someone who had the bloodline of a god monarch, he sure was domineering. In any case, those words probably meant that he was confident in defeating any opponent that had not reached God King yet. Since that was the case, her worry was probably unfounded. The Netherworld Palace was more crowded than it was on usual days, but somehow, a tense atmosphere could be felt in the air. Qi Yu was among the crowd as well. I am a cultivator who is within the top 30 of the Sky of Cloud Dragon's board of potential God King. I was invited here by the Sky of Drifting Spectres Physician Guild to trade insights regarding the way of medicine. Since the Physician Guild isn't ready to receive us yet, I am quite free at the moment. Thus, I came over here out of curiosity to see how strong those who are in the ranking board of the Sky of Drifting Spectre are. I am really interested to see how your cultivators compare to us from the Sky of Cloud Dragon. So, may I know if there's anyone here who's willing to face me in a battle? A white-robed young man looked at the crowd around him with his hands behind his back. There were 2 dragon horns peeking out from his forehead, gleaming with a golden luminescence. While the horns were not too long, they stood out quite a bit. Chapter 2172 Ao Hua. What arrogant word. In the past, We would always send invitation letters in order to interact with those from the other skies. It's preposterous that a physician like you actually dares to talk to us in such a manner. Everyone, calm down. The fact that he has a pair of golden dragon horns shows that he possesses the bloodline of the cloud dragon monarch, making him the descendant of a god monarch. Things probably aren't as simple as they seem. He's just a person who relies on his bloodline. We are all experts of our respective powers, so I don't believe he can be that powerful. The conceited words of the white-robed man induced outrage within the crowd. The other party was a physician who was there to exchange insight with their physician guild. Even if he was in the top 30 in the board of potential god kings for the sky of Cloud Dragon, it was inappropriate and insolent of him to rush over there to provoke them. It was a huge faux pas. This breach of etiquette could be viewed as a lack of respect for the sky of Drifting Spectre. If they did not respond accordingly, the sky of Drifting Spectre would be mocked by the other skies. May I know how I should address you? And what is your ranking in the sky of Cloud Dragon's board of potential god kings? A young man walked out from the crowd, and with a wave of his hand, he got the crowd to quiet down. With narrowed eyes, he assessed the white-robed man. The young man was none other than the top ranker of the sky of Drifting Spectre's board, Shuntu Feng. He was the strongest expert of the younger generation in the Shuntu clan, and he had once attempted a breakthrough to God King, only to fail in the end. Nevertheless, he had survived the ordeal, and it had allowed him to advance his physical body and soul cultivation to the level of a god king. It was just that he had not been able to make a breakthrough with his Junchi cultivation. He probably would not pale too much in comparison to an ordinary god king with his current fighting prowess. There was no questioning that he was the number one cultivator beneath the god kings, and his position had gone unchallenged for years. I am Ao Hua. I am honored to be able to get into the 9th place in the sky of Cloud Dragon's board. The white-robed man replied proudly. 9th place. The faces of the crowd turned grim. It was a known fact that the Cloud Dragon monarch was a pure-blooded dragon, the sovereign of all beasts. His bloodline was extremely powerful, to the extent that there were few who could rival it. Those who possessed his bloodline, once they morphed into a pure-blooded dragon, would be invincible in their power class. Before the receding of spiritual energy, the 9 skies had once conducted a tournament among celestial gods. Aside from the Sky of Freedom and Sky of Heavenly Sword, the cultivators of the Sky of Cloud Dragon had the highest win ratio. This was especially so once their cultivators morphed into pure-blooded dragons. With a body that extended for hundreds of meters and scales that provided them with absolute protection, human cultivators had no way of dealing with them at all. For this reason, the ranking board in the sky of Cloud Dragon carried much more weight. It was also due to this that Ao Hua dared to challenge them so arrogantly. To be ranked in 9th place, Ao Hua's strength was likely frighteningly powerful. Since you have issued the challenge, it would be unseemly if we turned you down. Allow me to face you. I'm interested to see if the experts of the sky of Cloud Dragon are really powerful enough for you to speak so haughtily. As those words sounded, a young man in his 30s stepped out and walked right up to Ao Hua. He was dressed in a black robe that flowed along his figure like a fitting armor. What is your name? I don't fight with nameless individuals, Ao Hua remarked nonchalantly. Seeing how he was being looked down upon, the young man clenched his teeth and spat coldly. I am 10th place on the sky of Drifting Spectre's board, Chen Mu. I'll only represent myself in this battle. The outcome of this battle has nothing to do with the sky of Drifting Spectre. Seeing this, Shuntu Feng and the rest of the crowd nodded quietly, not stopping the young man at all. Considering that Ao Hua was 9th place on the sky of Cloud Dragon, it was not an unwise move for their 10th place to challenge him. If he won, it would boost the glory of the sky of Drifting Spectre. If he lost, it would not look bad on them. This was a good chance to test out Ao Hua's strength. This way, if Chen Mu lost, those who faced him afterward could prepare themselves in advance. You sure are filled with nonsense. Ao Hua harumphed coldly as he took a step forward. It should have just been a single step, but as if he had teleported, he suddenly appeared right before Chen Mu. Without making any excessive move, he chose to ram his body right into Chen Mu. You're courting death. Not expecting the other party to forsake defense completely, choosing instead to rely entirely on his own physical body to deal with him. Chen Mu's face flushed red in fury. It was almost as if Ao Hua did not think that his attack would pose a threat at all. So, Chen Mu raised his palm furiously and struck down on the incoming Ao Hua. His palm was tinged crimson, and it caused the air to distort a little. Palm of blazing flames. In order to master this palm strike, Chen Mu had used the underground lava flowing through the earth veins to temper his palms. The execution of this palm strike caused his palms to become as hot as a furnace, such that anything that came in contact with it would be seared. It was through the mystical effect of this palm that he had managed to defeat many of his rivals to get within the top 10 places on the board of potential God King. As infuriated he was by Ao Hua's underestimation, he knew that the latter was likely a formidable foe. So, he chose to use his strongest strike right from the start. Peng. The white-robed man did not bother dodging Chen Mu's attack at all, allowing the palm of blazing flames to land right on his body. Seeing this, Chen Mu's face lit up in delight. But just as he thought that victory was within grasp, he noticed a hint of ridicule on the opponent's face. *T, is this a trap? The look sent chills down his spine, and the warning bells in his head began ringing incessantly. Realizing that Ao Hua was up to something, Chen Mu quickly retracted his palm and retreated. As someone who was able into the top 10 in the board of potential God Kings, his battle sense was not ordinary. However, as fast as he reacted, Ao Hua was even faster than him. The latter increased the speed of his ram, determined to knock Chen Mu down. Catcher. Chen Mu raised his arm to protect himself, but the impact of the collision fractured it. Not only so, the impact also collided with his chest, and before he could even speak, a dull groan escaped from his mouth as he was sent flying. Pu. Fresh blood spurted into the air as his shoulders and ribcage shattered. Done. Ao Hua placed his hands behind his back nonchalantly. It was as if the one who had made a move earlier was not him at all. There was no crease in his clothes as a result of that battle, and his voice remained calm and relaxed. The crowd gasped a little as they began to reassess Ao Hua's strength once more. From the start to the end, Ao Hua had only used a single move, and that was his body ram. Yet, this single move was more than enough to overwhelm Chen Mu, rendering him powerless. I am Qi Yu, 6th place on the board. Qi Yu walked out and introduced himself. The encounter with Zhong Xian at the Qi clan had sparked his motivation anew, driving him to work harder than ever. In just a few short days, he had managed to further reinforce his cultivation, making his aura and zhenqi more condensed than before. This allowed him to wield greater strength at his disposal. Yes, it's a pleasure to meet you. Let's begin the battle, Ao Hua replied nonchalantly before charging forward once more. Just like that, the two of them began battling one another. Zhong Xian followed Qi Ling'er into a vast room in the Netherworld Palace, but there was no one in sight. He could not help but frown. Is this really the place where the sky of drifting specters selects those who are worthy of getting onto the board of potential God Kings? Why isn't there anyone here? This is weird. There should be quite a few people here according to what I know. Qi Ling'er was stunned, too. The battles between those competing for the positions of the board of potential God Kings would be logged within this room. For this reason, quite a few people would stop by every day to view the recordings, hoping to receive some inspiration. This room was almost never empty, so it was bizarre that there was no one there at all. There seems to be people over there, Zhong Xian said. Without waiting for Qi Ling'er's response, he began making his way over there. The two of them passed by a door, and a massive dueling ring came into sight. There, they saw a sight that left them stunned. There were more than a dozen people lying weakly in the dueling ring with pale faces. Among them stood a white-robed man who revealed a hint of haughtiness. Half a minute ago. After all the battles that had happened, only Shintu Feng was left. Is this the sky of drifting specters board of potential God Kings? I don't know if there is any reason for it to continue existing if such is the quality of its rankers. Ao Hua's voice did not carry any disdain at all. It was nonchalant, almost as if he was just stating a fact. He did not think that the top 10 experts of the board of potential God Kings would actually be so weak. If so, It seemed like the board did not hold much purpose. "Aren't you speaking a little too early? Why don't you speak after defeating me?" Shun Tu Feng spat coldly. In just a few short minutes, Ao Hua had defeated not just Chi Yu but also the other 7 people in the top 10. He did not use any battle techniques in the battle at all, relying solely on his physical body to beat his enemies. Regardless of the strength of his opponent, he was able to defeat the latter in a single move. This showed that Ao Hua's physical body had already reached an extremely frightening level. "Let's cut the chatter and get straight to the battle, alright?" Ao Hua said calmly as he started charging forward once more. Shun Tu Feng flicked his wrist and whipped out a sword. With incredible swiftness, he thrust it forward. Woo! A cold glint flashed from the blade of the sword and severed the air with incredible sharpness. The strength of someone who had the capability to become the top expert of the board of potential god kings was indubitable. The prowess of his physical body was amazing, and the swordsmanship he executed was so powerful that his high-tier celestial god sword seemed to be unable to withstand his strength. Interesting. Seeing how formidable Shun Tu Feng's swordsmanship was, Ao Hua did not dare continue fighting as recklessly as he did previously. He abruptly halted his charge and stretched his arm forward. With a jolt, his arm turned into the massive claws of a dragon. In that instant, a domineering aura blasted from his presence, leaving others with a stifled feeling. The bloodline of a pure-blooded dragon. Ding ding ding! Shun Tu Feng's sword struck heavily down upon the dragon's claw, but the sound of metallic clangs echoed instead. No matter how much strength Shun Tu Feng put behind his sword, he found that he was unable to pierce through those scales. God King Realm physical body? Shun Tu Feng felt his body turning cold. Only after facing Ao Hua in person did he realize just how frightening the other party was. That explained why the other party was able to defeat the other 9 with just a simple body ram. In truth, his body was already comparable to a God King tier artifact. No, that isn't it. I reckon that only his claws have reached such a level. His physical body is only at the level of a high-tier celestial god artifact, but it's still frightening enough, Shun Tu Feng thought. If Ao Hua's entire body had reached the level of a god king, there was no way that he would have only been 9th place on the sky of Cloud Dragon. Nevertheless, having a single claw of that prowess was frightening enough. As expected of a pure-blooded dragon. Their bloodline sure was frightening. It was enough to induce despair in any cultivator facing them. Peng! After several strikes, the sword in Shun Tu Feng's hands shattered before he was struck square in the chest. Just like those before him, he was struck heavily to the ground. Clutching onto his heart tightly, he panted raggedly, unable to speak a word at all. Despite being the number 1 expert on the board of potential god kings, he was still no match for Ao Hua. Is that all to the sky of Drifting Spectre's board of potential god kings? Ao Hua shook his head in disappointment. At this moment, 2 figures suddenly walked in. Zhong Xian and Qi Ling. Oh! We seem to have come at a good time. They are competing for the ranking right now. Zhong Xian's eyes lit up in delight. He had been worried that he would have to wait for quite long before someone would accept the duel, but who could have known that he would see someone in the dueling ring right away? From the looks of it, it seemed like they had just concluded the duel. Since that was the case, he just had to challenge the person who was still standing at the moment in order to replace him in the ranking. How convenient. His luck was not too bad after all. Chapter 2173 Pure-Blooded Dragon. I see that you have defeated quite a few opponents. You must be pretty strong, Zhong Xian said as he glanced at the injured cultivators sprawled all over the dueling ring. If even the 6th rank Chi Yu was defeated, it meant that the white-robed man on the stage was of an even higher rank, right? However, that was not important to him. He was not aiming to be at the top of the board of potential god kings anyway. All he wanted was the right to use the Great Displacement teleportation formation. Yet another fearless fool, eh? Seeing how the young man was walking toward him without the slightest hint of fear, Ao Hua burst into laughter. He looked at the young man and asked mockingly, "Do you intend to challenge me to a duel?" "That's right. What rank are you on the board of potential god kings? I'm sorry to say this, but I don't want to waste my time fighting anyone who is beneath 30th, Zhongxian replied. Even though the 6th rank Qi Yu was lying on the ground, he had no way of knowing if it was the doing of the white-robed man. Furthermore, he did not see any god kings in the area to judge the duel, so he was not too sure whether the battle had caused a reshuffling in ranks. Thus, it was better for him to verify if the white-robed man on the stage fit the criterion first. Ao Hua did not expect the newly arrived young man to be even more arrogant than him. His cheeks twitched a little as his eyes turned cold. I'm ranked 9th. No wonder. Zhongxian nodded in realization. Most likely, this 9th rank must have stumbled upon some sort of fortuitous encounter that resulted in his fighting prowess becoming far stronger than before, such that even the 6th rank Qi Yu was no match at all. Seeing how the young man was absorbed in his own thoughts, not paying any heed to him at all, Ao Hua felt a little displeased. Do you know who I am? I am. It's fine, it's fine. There's no need for you to go through the trouble of introducing yourself. As long as you are within the top 30, it makes no difference to me, Zhongxian said with a smile. Leaping onto the stage, Zhongxian beckoned with his hand and said, "Shall we begin? You arrogant little, it seems like you are asking for a beating." Ao Hua knew the best way to crush an arrogant person's ego was to overpower him with his fists. So, without wasting any time, he pushed his feet forcefully against the ground and dashed right toward Zhongxian with a speed that was reminiscent of teleportation. This sight made Zhongxian's eyes light up. As expected of a high-ranked cultivator on the board of potential god kings, his speed was above that of ordinary high-tier celestial god. Instead of dodging, Zhongxian stepped forward to face Ao Hua's ram. It just so happened that he wanted to make this battle a duel between their physical prowess, so it could be said that everything went in the direction he wanted it to. His only weakness right now was his soul cultivation. On the ground, Shen Tufeng was shocked to see this young man recklessly facing Ao Hua's ram directly. Enduring the excruciating pain of his body, he shouted out to warn the young man, "Don't face his attack straight on." Ao Hua was an expert of the sky of Cloud Dragon, and he specialized in his physical prowess. Facing him in a physical fight was as good as courting death. Just as everyone thought that Zhongxian would be knocked down by Ao Hua, just like the rest of them, the unexpected happened. Peng! Ao Hua's supposedly indestructible rammed squarely into Zhongxian's body, but somehow, the impact of his charge was rebounded back to him instead, causing his body to fly back and crash into the ground. What? Shen Tufeng and the others lying on the ground widened their eyes in disbelief. Ao Hua had used such a move to defeat them previously. They had never expected the fellow who had popped out of nowhere to actually use the same move to defeat him. To actually triumph over that monster from the sky of Cloud Dragon in a battle of physical prowess. This was insane. Ao Hua was startled by how things turned out as well. He raised his head to assess the opponent before him in disbelief, only to see the latter stretching his neck, as if he was just getting warmed up. The young man also looked back at him with eyes filled with enthusiasm, saying, "Remarkable. You have really cultivated your physical body well. Come, let's continue the battle. There's no need to look at me with such frightened eyes. I'll remain still and allow you to do whatever you want, alright?" Since tempering his body, he had not been able to find a suitable weapon that he could use to pierce his skin, so he was not able to verify the effects of those golden threads hidden amid his muscles. It had not been easy for him to find someone whose physical body was decently strong, so there was no way he would let this golden opportunity to test out the extent of his physical resilience go to waste. "You!" Ao Hua was nearly driven mad with anger. "Are you trying to humiliate me by showing me that there is nothing I can do that will hurt you? Damn it, you son of a B*****. How dare you mock a person from the dragon tribe like me? Unforgivable." Ao Hua pushed his hand against the ground and immediately rose to his feet. With a powerful step, he charged toward Zhongxian with a speed as swift as lightning. Jeji! Jeji! Even while he was flitting through the air, layers of scales were already starting to appear on the surface of his body. This was known as a partial transformation to those of the Cloud Dragon tribe. It was mainly used as a defensive technique that granted one enhanced protection against physical assaults. The resilience of the scales also made one's skin impenetrable by swords and spears. It would be difficult for most cultivators to breach such defense. Peng. But as Ao Hua rammed into Zhongxian once more, the same excruciating pain that felt as if his entire skeleton was falling apart surged through his body, and he was sent flying again. Oh! That was much better than before. Not bad. It seems like you can do it after all if you really try. Come on, let's go again. As long you can injure me, I don't mind giving you money or even accepting you as my student, Zhongxian said excitedly. This was the first time that he had encountered an opponent who had managed to temper his physical body to a level that he thought was decent. More importantly, the white-robed man was still quite young. It seemed like the firmament had quite a lot of hidden expert. This white-robed man was clearly much more talented than Zhuo Yang, possibly enough to become his student. You be ****, you're courting death. Ao Hua was on the verge of exploding. He had gone there to challenge the Sky of Drifting Spectres board of potential god kings, and when he defeated the first-rank Shen Tufeng with ease, he naturally thought that the celestial gods there were trash. Yet, who could have known that he would encounter such a monster right after? Not only was his physical body so powerful that it felt like there was no way to overcome it, his arrogance was also one of kind, too. To say that he would take his opponent in as his student if his opponent could injure him. The heck? Who in the world do you think you are to say such words? Get your head out of the clouds. This. Shen Tufeng and the others felt frenzied as well. They had thought that Ao Hua was already very conceited, but there was still someone who could top his act. It's him. Among the injured cultivators lying all around the dueling ring, there was one person who recognized Zhongxian, Qi Yu. He clenched his fists tightly and held his breath, not daring to even breathe loudly in his presence. While everyone in Royal City might have heard of Zhongxian's name, very few knew of Zhongxian's true identity. However, he was one of the few people who had seen with his own eyes how the old ancestor kneeled in Zhongxian's presence and addressed him as God Monarch. How could such a person possibly be defeated by a mere celestial god from the sky of Cloud Dragon? I'll kill you. This time, Ao Hua decided to go all out. His palm morphed into the claw of a dragon once more as he swiped it down right toward Zhongxian. You are a transmogrified celestial beast. Zhongxian frowned. As it was just an ordinary duel, he did not bother using his Eye of Insight and the Library of Heaven's Path. So, only at this moment did he realize that his opponent's true form was actually a celestial beast. What about it? It's too late for you to beg for mercy now. With a furious roar, Ao Hua's claw swiped down on Zhongxian's shoulder, and the latter, just as before, did not even bother to move. Catcher! The sound of a bone shattering echoed loudly in the air. Zhongxian glanced at his shoulder and saw that his robe had been ripped apart, revealing his skin. There was a long white mark on his skin, and it looked like he was just a little bit away from bleeding. Wonderful! Zhongxian exclaimed excitedly. But barely after he said those words, the white mark suddenly vanished, as if it had never appeared before. It seemed like his regenerative ability was simply too strong. The white mark that was imprinted on his skin was not deep enough to last even a split second, such that he did not have time to test out the effects of the golden threads. So, he anxiously raised his head and urged Ao Hua to continue. You did well with your previous attack. Come on, let's continue. I'll stand on the spot and allow you to hit me as you please. If I dodge, you can consider it my loss. I'll kill you. Ao Hua clutched his head in madness. Su 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 su. Two claws struck Zhongxian relentlessly with a nice rhythm. Every strike he threw out harnessed his full strength, causing Zhongxian's clothes to be ripped to shreds. White marks appeared one after another on his body, but he still did not bleed. Furthermore, those white marks disappeared moments after they appeared, almost as if Ao Hua was scratching his itch. Catcher! Catcher! A few moments later, Ao Hua finally stopped in despair. He looked at Zhongxian's completely unharmed body before examining his own claws, and he began wailing sorrowfully. Zhongxian's body was like a freakishly hard stone that simply would not dent no matter how hard he struck it. Swiping his claws relentlessly on such a surface had caused his nails to tear off and his scales to drop off. It looked as if he was the one who had been ravaged. And when he raised his head to look at the young man before him once more, the latter looked more excited than ever. "Hurry up, let's continue. You just need to put in a little bit more force. You nearly got me bleeding, you know." Aohua staggered. "Can't you tell that I'm trying to kill you? Can you stop saying such suggestive words that make it seem as if we are flirting with one another? Even dragons have our pride. You have truly angered me this time around." With an imposing roar that caused the whole dueling ring to tremor, Aohua's clothes ripped apart as his body morphed instantaneously into a massive dragon of several hundred meters long. He coiled around the sky of the Netherworld Palace, almost as if a deity gazing down on the world. "Wait a moment, you are a pure-blooded dragon?" Zhongxian was stunned. He had honestly thought that the other party was just an ordinary celestial beast, making him slightly stronger than the average cultivator. It did not even cross his mind for a moment that the other party was a member of the dragon tribe. He had heard about the dragon tribe ever since his time on the Master-Teacher continent, but most of those that he encountered were just crossbreeds with impure bloodlines. Even in the Azure, he had only encountered a pseudo-dragon. Given how the opponent was able to transmogrify into such a powerful and imposing beast, it was clear that he was a pure-blooded dragon. Indeed. "Do you understand what you have done? You have humiliated a pure-blooded dragon today. Prepare to face the rage of the dragon tribe." Aohua bellowed furiously as he unleashed his flame breath upon the Netherworld Palace. An inferno swiftly spread all over the room, causing everything to be set alight. "We're doomed." Shen Tufeng, Qi Yu, and the others paled in fright. Dragon breath was the strongest offensive move of the dragon tribe, its might surpassing even that of their claws. The dragon breath of a high-tier celestial god pure-blooded dragon held sufficient might to even overpower a god king temporarily. Zhongxian had really gone too far taunting Aohua. He should have shown some restraint, but he ended up provoking Aohua to reveal his true form and trump card. How were they supposed to face something like that? Even the strongest celestial god could not possibly stand against something of this caliber. "Young Master Zhong," Qi Linger muttered in fright. Before she could make sense of what was happening on the dueling ring, somehow, Zhongxian had started fighting with the young man on the stage. She had been a little apprehensive at first, but seeing how Zhongxian had managed to claim the upper hand, she had decided to leave things be. But the instant that the white-robed man morphed into a dragon, she had realized that they were in deep T. Pure-blooded dragons were known to be the strongest lifeforms in the world, and Aohua was a pure-blooded dragon who managed to be ranked in the 9th place among all his peers, making him a truly fearsome force to behold. Everyone was shocked beyond words, but Zhongxian did not show the slightest nervousness when faced with such an overpowering existence. Instead, he stroked his chin contemplatively as an idea emerged in his head. It is said that the 8 notes of Heavenly Dragon are effective on all beings possessing the dragon bloodline. I wonder if it'll be effective on a pure-blooded dragon too. Well, I should probably just give it a try. It won't take too much of my time. With this thought in mind, Zhongxian raised his head and Mao, moo, boom. The massive dragon in the sky who was busy unleashing his breath to kill everyone suddenly seemed to have been struck by something, causing his face to pale. He crashed helplessly to the ground, and his long body twitched non-stop. He looked like a reptile that had just been electrocuted. "Huh!" The surroundings suddenly fell utterly silent. Shen Tufeng, Qi Yu, and the others were stupefied. They did not even realize that they were tearing out clumps of their hair. Chapter 2174 Sky of Cloud Dragon, leader of the Physician Guild. It was no wonder they reacted in such a manner. The long reptile convulsing on the floor was the 9th rank on the Sky of Cloud Dragon's board of potential god kings. Even the first rank Shen Tufeng was far from a match for him. They had thought that the Sky of Drifting Spectres would be humiliated after this incident, becoming the joke of the 9 skies, but who would have thought that a savior would appear at this moment? Not only did he manage to defeat Aohua in a physical brawl, he even managed to jolt the latter to the ground with a roar even after he had morphed into his dragon form. How in the world did he manage to do that? It's the 8 notes of heavenly dragons. I thought that all pure-blooded dragons are able to make those sounds. Why would Aohua be jolted to such a state? You're right to say that all pure-blooded dragons are able to voice the 8 notes of heavenly dragons, but it seems like the language can be classified into various tiers. There's a legend concerning that, but I don't really know how true it is. A legend? It's said that many years ago, when the heaven and earth had just parted and the world was in great chaos, the eastern land was susceptible to the pull of gravity caused by the rising sun in the east. It was then that the cloud dragon monarch appeared and pinned the land in place. Through observing the state of the world, he created the 8 notes of heavenly dragon. These 8 notes can be voiced by any pure-blooded dragons, but the prowess of them is dependent on how harmonious one's voice is with nature, and that is affected by the purity of one's bloodline. Unlike our Chenkuan demon monarch, who lives a life free of desires, the cloud dragon monarch is known to have a lot of descendants. He has 9 sons in total, and that's also where the saying the 9 sons of the dragon comes from. Indeed. Over the years, his family tree has expanded to encompass countless generations. Even though those in the current generation are still considered pure-blooded dragons, their bloodline is unbelievably thin. As a result, if they encountered a pure-blooded dragon whose bloodline was even purer than them voicing the 8 notes of heavenly dragon, they would feel an innate suppression resulting from the hierarchy in bloodline. I see. If that's the case, does it mean that the young man over there is an expert of the dragon tribe as well and likely possesses a bloodline even purer than that of Aohua? With hushed voices, Shen Tufeng and the others lying on the ground began discussing the situation with one another discreetly. By the side, Qi Yu and Qi Ling'er were looking at the situation before them with widened eyes. They felt so incredulous that they could not help but wonder if they were really in reality. Did the old ancestor not say that he was the spirit god? Why would he suddenly be affiliated with the sky of Cloud Dragon? Just how many identities did that fellow have? Was it possible for someone who possessed the bloodline of a god monarch to switch the nature of their bloodline around? This was getting more and more ridiculous by the moment. If they had not known that the spirit god and the Cloud Dragon monarch were both guys, they would have wondered if the two of them had some sort of secret relationship with one another. On the dueling ring, however, Zhongxian was still oblivious to the huge uproar that he had stirred up. He calmly walked up to the convulsing massive dragon and gazed down on the other party's eyes, which were ironically even larger than Zhongxian's body, and said coolly, "How is it? Do you want to admit defeat? I would have loved to play around with you a bit more, but I still have some other matters to attend to." Who? Amid the convulsions, the massive dragon began to shrink before finally returning to his human form. Biting his lips anxiously, Aohua immediately kneeled onto the floor and kowtowed. Junior Aohua pays respects to his ancestor. Ancestor? Zhongxian was stunned. What was going on? He was just testing out to see if the 8 notes of heavenly dragon were effective on pure-blooded dragons. He did not expect it to work so well. Not only did it cause his opponent to crash to the ground, his opponent even started calling him ancestor. Did the earlier fall rattle his brain too much or something? Zhongxian was perplexed, but somehow, he was already accustomed to facing such bizarre situations. Without revealing the slightest hint of emotion on his face, he nodded and remarked, "I should have replaced you as 9th rank on the board of potential god kings now, right?" Ah! Aohua looked at Zhongxian with a hint of bewilderment and fear, and he asked hesitantly, Have you never participated in the test back in the sky of Cloud Dragon?" The young man before him had a bloodline that was innumerable times purer than his own. If the young man had participated in the test before, his ranking should be quite high, but he knew whom the top 8 were, and the young man was not among them. Had he really not participated in this test before? Zhongxian looked at Aohua speechlessly and remarked, "I am in the sky of Drifting Spectre. Why in the world would I take the test in the sky of Cloud Dragon?" The earlier impact must have struck the intelligence out of his opponent as well. Why would the other party ask such an obvious question? Ah! Aohua was surprised by Zhongxian's response once more. Could it be that the young man before was an ancestor who had been left behind in the sky of Drifting Spectre? Thinking about it, Their sky of cloud dragon did indeed find quite a few people with their bloodline from the other skies every year. It was just that most of their bloodline would have already thinned out by then. This was his first time encountering someone outside whose bloodline was even purer than his. Aohua wanted to ask more about the matter, but when he saw the young man looking at him impatiently, as if he was a scammer who was going to deny his loss, he sighed deeply and replied, "I am 9th rank in the sky of Cloud Dragon, so our duel won't affect the sky of Drifting Spectre's board. The first rank of the sky of Drifting Spectre, Shuntu Feng, is the guy over there whom I have just beaten up." "Yes, you are pointing at the right guy. The one with dried blood on his mouth, yep." Seeing how the attention of the crowd had suddenly turned to him, Shuntu Feng tried to put on his coolest smile and said, "Indeed, I'm the first rank in the sky of Drifting Spectre." It might have looked cool if his mouth was not leaking air due to the swelling of his face. Zhong Xian's lips twitched. That fellow was actually first rank. So, in other words, before he even got there, that fellow had already been downed by someone else. That explained why the other fellow was able to turn into a pure-blooded dragon. After all the confusion, it turned out that he was from the sky of Cloud Dragon. Qi Ling'er was also dumbstruck. It had not been long since she returned to Royal City, so she had not managed to strike up connections with the figures on the board of potential god kings yet. As such, she did not notice that the first rank was also present. She had thought that the others lying on the ground were weaker than Qi Yu, but who could have known that even the first rank was there? So, the person whose eyes were swollen and nose was broken was actually the number one expert beneath the god kings in the sky of Drifting Spectre, the person whom countless women viewed to be their ideal type? Weak. It was no wonder young Master Zhong had said that it did not matter who he challenged. It turned out that he really had the strength to back up his words. Despite only taking 2 breaths to make a breakthrough, he was still able to easily defeat someone who had cultivated for centuries to get to first place. The bloodline of a god monarch sure was scary. Qi Ling'er could not help but sigh at how different people could be just on the basis of their birth. It seemed like it was time for her to change her train of thought. She should stop trying to interpret Zhong Xian with her common sense. The very existence of the god monarchs was an aberration of nature. It was because they could achieve what others deemed impossible that others had no choice but to revere them. If you defeated the first rank, and I defeated you right after, shouldn't that count as well? After all the effort that he had put into the fight, Zhong Xian did not think that his opponent turned out to be nothing more than an extra. With a troubled look, he glanced at the cultivators lying on the ground and murmured, "Should I just challenge these fellows just to be safe?" The so-called free knights were not there to supervise the duel, so he was not sure if his earlier fight was valid. In any case, there was no harm in getting a guarantee. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if he had to return there to fight again. What? Let's not do that. Shuntu Feng quickly spoke up. "I'll report this matter honestly to the Free Knights and surrender my spot to you." He would rather surrender the position of his own accord than suffer a tragic defeat against someone who was clearly out of his league. Even Aohua appeared nothing more than a toddler before him, and he was probably nothing more than a toddler to Aohua. Even if he cultivated for another century, he could not see himself defeating the young man unless he made a breakthrough to God King. Since that was the case, he might as well admit his defeat and spare himself needless agony. "Is that so? That would really be helpful." Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. This matter was settled far easier than he had expected. But as soon as he thought about the criterion about having to reach the top of an occupation, he felt another headache coming on. "Oh, wait a moment." Zhong Xian turned to Aohua and asked, "Did you mention that you're from the sky of Cloud Dragon?" "Yes, ancestor," Aohua replied obediently. "I heard that the sky of Cloud Dragon has dispatched a group of physicians here to challenge the sky of Drifting Spectre's Physician Guild." "Is that true?" "There's indeed such a thing." "I am part of the group," Aohua replied. "I would like to have my skills in the way of medicine assessed so as to earn the right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation, but as those in the Physician Guild are preoccupied with preparing to face you in the Physician Tournament, they don't have the time to care about anything else. Is it possible for me to request for your group to hold the test for me instead?" Zhong Xian asked. After asking Qi Linge more about it, he realized that what he needed was just to have his skills in medicine recognized by someone esteemed in the field. Since those in the Sky of Drifting Spectre were busy, he could just ask those from the Sky of Cloud Dragon for help instead. His goal was just to receive the rights to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation anyway. It did not matter to him who handled his test. You wish to have your skills in the way of medicine assessed? Ao Hua asked. Zhong Xian nodded. That's right. Ao Hua pondered for a moment before replying. Well, I think it should be possible since our guild leader and the elders came with us. With their standing in the physician community, they should be qualified to hold the test. I'll bring you to them then. While the Sky of Cloud Dragon was headed by the pure-blooded dragons, it did not consist solely of members of the dragon tribe. There were many ordinary humans living among them as well, and the leader of their physician guild was one such example. Despite not possessing the bloodline of the pure-blooded dragons, his medicinal skills were astounding, such that he was well respected in the other skies as well. That would really be great. Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. When one door closes, another door opens. It was just a moment ago that he was turned away at the Physician Guild, but who could have thought that he would encounter a physician from the Sky of Cloud Dragon while he was trying to get into the top 30 in the board of potential God Kings? Everything worked out so conveniently for him, sparing him the trouble of having to approach the other guilds. While he was confident in his skills in the other occupations, he was hesitant to reveal them in public. He had already displayed his superior talent in pill forging, and if he continued revealing more of his hands, he would really start drawing unwanted attention to himself. He quickly looked for a free night together with Shen Tufeng in order to confirm his placing on the board of potential God Kings before following Ao Hua all the way to the accommodation of the physicians from the Sky of Cloud Dragon. Fortunately, their accommodation was not too far away. That was also why Ao Hua had the time to spare to drop by and challenge the others. You wish to earn the qualification to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation on the basis of your skills in the way of medicine? Shortly after entering a residence, two elders walked out to hear Zhong Xian out. The old lady on the left looked at him with a grim look on her face. That's my intention, Zhong Xian replied. The right to use the Great Displacement Teleportation Formation is no joke. It concerns the safety of the 9 skies, so there's a cap on the number of people who can receive this right. Only 2 physicians in our Sky of Cloud Dragon are entitled to this privilege, the 2 of us. However, we can give you a chance to prove yourself. As long as you are able to defeat either of us, we can pass on the right to you, the old man on the right replied. Sounds fine by me. Zhong Xian nodded. He knew that he would have to compete for the right, and he had already prepared himself mentally prior to going there. Good, the old man said. I am the leader of the Cloud Dragon Royal City's Physician Guild, Liao Xin. May I know how I should address you? It was only right to ask for the other party's name since they were going to compete in a duel. My name is Zhong Xian. Zhong Xian? Liao Xin repeated with a slight nod before abruptly freezing in place. His eyes widened in shock before his body began trembling in agitation. Is it possible that you are the person who created the breakthrough pill and beauty pill, apothecary Zhong Xian? Yes, that's me, Zhong Xian replied. Liao Xin staggered back a little before abruptly bowing deeply before Zhong Xian. Thank you for saving my life, benefactor. There's no need to compete anymore. Your skills in medicine are indubitably superior to mine. Zhong Xian was stunned. Qi Linge was flabbergasted. What is it this time? Why is everyone getting so overexcited today? Do you know how exhausting it is trying to match your energy? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,